baby. It is Worlds time. Quarterfinals start today. And I couldn't be more excited to have this going on. Of course, I've got some familiar faces, or at least you should be familiar with them at this point joining me. My name's Gormizer, and I've got Hazer and Taco, who are going to be sitting with me through the desk here for the Scarabs and the Dragons, and I think also the Bolts Leviathans a little bit later. So we're going to be hanging out and having a lot of fun. But this is the time for these teams to show up, and it is time for these teams to step up. And you can already see how they've stepped up a little bit. They have their fresh new championship edition jerseys. You can pick one up to support your favorite team as well. Go to hrz.io/SWC merch. Important. All of that last bit, SWC merch, all caps, it'll take you straight there. Otherwise, you can just go to Insight Apparel or shop.smiteproleague.com and find all of that. Plus, you've got the joggers, you've got the mousepad, a ton of stuff up for Worlds here, all in that brilliant black and gold. So gear up, support your favorite teams, and even the ones that might not have made it here. You can still rep them out there. For all the Warriors fans, the Valks fans out there, the jerseys still look good. Maybe next year, right? That's what they're looking at. Right now, though, it is the Dragons and the Scarabs that are up first, and that, I'm sure, is what everybody has been waiting for. We got to talk to the players a little bit earlier today, and they seem pretty excited about it. In fact, Hazer, I talked to the Scarabs, and they were just like, yeah, you know what? It's the Dragons game to win. Like, for us, there's not a lot of pressure on it, and I'm sure they're feeling that now.
Yeah, I saw Bobby saying that. He was saying there's no pressure on them. I think there's a little bit of pressure on them. I think they're probably feeling a little bit more pressure than they're letting on to. But definitely people are expecting more from the Dragons, and the Dragons will be feeling after the last 2 years of, or since Season 4 even, Mike and Panda especially been hunting for that World Championship win again, trying to feel that glory again, trying to lift that hammer, and they'll be feeling a lot of pressure to do so. And
that's a lot. I mean, Taco, you look at these teams and what they've been able to accomplish. The Dragons, a lot of these players have got to the top several times. They've gotten to the finals several times, and they haven't been able to seal the deal. It does feel, especially with their history, given what they've done against the Scarabs this year, there's a lot more pressure on this set going well for them than anything else.
I would imagine, especially given the fact that the outcome is still going to put you up against the Tartarus Titans at the end of the day. So as far as power dynamics are concerned, I definitely think that the JADE Dragons overall, when you look at an individual perspective, JADE Dragons, they're mechanically sound. They have a lot of really strong decision-making coming out of that veteran experience, but I think we're kind of seeing a Solar Scarabs that's on the rise, and the fact that they have won sets in the past against the JADE Dragons certainly going to bode a little bit better for that team mentally, I'd imagine.
And you have to imagine, especially for the Scarabs here, that they have to be amped, right? Like, a lot of these players haven't been to a World Championship before, so they have to be having a lot of energy, maybe a little bit of jitters as they move forward. But this is a very important step for them. We'll focus in on the Dragons here. Had a pretty simple path in order to get to this portion of the World Championship, in the sense that they still had to play through placements, but they won their set against the Bolts in a best of 5. They went 5 games, still made it here, and they did it doing nothing really fresh. I mean, we got to see Mercury like 5 games from them. It just felt like, Hazer, they just kind of sauntered their way towards where they wanted to be.
Yeah, the Dragons played like the Dragons, right? The one thing I would say is that Hurry maybe picked up a couple extra picks, which was promising. The Zhongqi looked good. The Neath looked good, which are things we haven't really seen too much success out from the mid lane. So I definitely think he's come up, but the big thing for me is going to be whether that duo lane can push leads, can dominate like they're wont to do. Panda can, PBM, need to control these games.
And that's the big thing, Taco. I mean, you look at this, like, Hurry is maybe the one wild card just because he wasn't here with them last year, but everybody else has performed at this stage several times. They even mentioned, I think, after last Worlds how they wanted this one to matter. They didn't care about the regular season. It was all about this. And so it is important for, like, the duo lane to step up, especially against Inbound and Stewart.
Hazer said it best, honestly. It's just the fact that this duo lane really is going to have to make a huge impact, because if you look everywhere else on the map, I would say that a lot of the influence from the Solar Scarabs does tend to come out of this duo lane, and if Bobby's having a good day, or Inbound, excuse me, then there is honestly no telling what could happen, because I think more than anything, we've seen a lot of consistencies coming through from the Scarabs jungle out of Scream, and so Sam is another huge question mark for me on this JADE Dragons roster, because we have seen some of the best things possible from Sam. We've also seen some of the worst, and so I think a lot of it is really just going to hinge on how well Polar Bear Mike and Sam are really going to be able to work through that initial 3v3 taken down in like the mid-jungle support perspective early on.
They are crucial to the victory. I also think Panda Cat, we had mentioned him a little bit, but we go back, and I'm specifically looking at things that happen during placements. You get a couple of moments that are really big from Panda Cat that really do set the stage for them. And so it feels like everybody's stepping up. I honestly feel a little bad because it feels like everyone's name is getting thrown out there, except for FineOK, who has just been a consistent key for them. I mean, Hazer, he's someone that they can rely on. Maybe that's why we don't mention him so much.
Yeah, I mean, Fino is an absolute monster. It's crazy that he's getting the least mention from us here. He is consistent, he is solid, and he can carry games from that solo lane. But I definitely think that the solo lane will be more consistent for this game. The two solo laners will cancel each other out a bit, and it'll be up to the rest of the map to decide where the game goes.
And I'm happy we're focusing on solo lane because now we can pivot over towards the Scarabs and specifically focus in on Solar Troll, because Solar Troll will play the standards. He'll play normal things, like it's no big deal. He's also, like, in the last week of gameplay, we saw him competitively decide to lock in a Thor solo, and he likes playing those. Taco, is that helpful or hurtful for them here in the World Championship? I mean, it's a wild card.
Given how Solar Troll tends to play around Scream inside that jungle position, I definitely think that a lot of those pressure picks are a little bit more favorable for the Scarabs. I mean, this is a team where a lot of their set wins have been established on the backbone of having those early lane pressure matchups. And something else that I find to be pretty interesting between the Solar Scarabs and the JADE Dragons is that these are two teams that I do feel tend to lean pretty heavily into those pick style compositions. So when you have two teams that love just trying to basically isolate one member at a time and then look to pick apart a draft from the team perspective out of the individual play, then that's something that I think that the Solar Scarabs are going to have to basically decide for themselves. Do we want to throw SOT or our duo lane into matchups that we think can win just the laning phase alone and try and transition that into more of the team fighting aspect, or do we want to just bank it all on a team fight? And as far as the Scarabs are concerned, I think it might bode pretty well for them to look for that team style of play as opposed to the pick style of play, because the JADE Dragons, that's what they do best.
It's something difficult to try and face off against. We talked a little bit earlier about the mid 3v3. Of course, right now we're watching Solar Troll, but seeing Boronic specifically playing things like the Charybdis, seeing Stuart bring in things like the Freya, but also having Inbound, who has been very important. I'm going to throw him under the bus again, not the Yamoja, but every other god that he has played on in that role has been phenomenal. And then, of course, you have to look at this Scream gameplay that has really, really enhanced the Scarabs, Hazer, but also sometimes doesn't, pull enough of its weight.
Yeah, well, I feel like Scream's been an absolute monster on this team, honestly. The guy's getting people to ban Naja. How? How? Why? When did this happen? The Kali's been crazy, and he's been great on the Humbats as well. I think, in particular, he and Boronic and Stuart all came into themselves in that play-ins for Worlds. They all played really, really well. I think the meta really, really suited them. And if they can carry that momentum through and keep performing it the way they did in this event, then I definitely think they could make it past the Dragons here.
It's actually really funny because you mentioned the Naja bans. I decided to look it up. Like, versus the Dragons, makes sense. Zeus was getting banned out a lot. Hurry's been loving that the last couple of months, and he's kind of looked indomitable on that. Naja is the most banned god against the Scarabs from placements. Granted, they did play a lot of games versus the Warriors. The Warriors learned their lesson about it. But knowing that it's Naja, then it's Kali, that Scream is taking so much of the brunt of it, it's got to feel good, maybe, I guess, for the rest of the members of the Scarabs, right, Taco? Because all of a sudden you're not as stressed about whether or not, Stuart can get his comfort pick or Boronic can get theirs. You know that Scream's going to have more in his pocket.
I'm not even sure that it's going to come down to comfort picks here, because when it comes to a world stage, I feel as though no one can ever really afford to get too comfortable, because what might work in one game could immediately be eliminated the next as far as drafts are concerned. So I think more than anything here, I do want to see some of that consistency right in from Boronic, have a little bit of that momentum coming in through placements.
That's a huge deal for them, because I think we've talked about it. You mentioned the fact that adaptability, like how you handle these pretty much from game to game to game, is important. Best of 5, you got a long time to try and change it out. But I've mentioned in the past that personally, I think the Scarabs are one of the best adaptable teams that we've seen. Like, very typical, they will lose game 1 and a atrocious fast, like you'll second guess everything you know about the team. And then 2, 3, and these best of 5s, 4, potentially 5, really change things up. Dragons are going to be the first pick, though. And a lot rides on this. I'm going to mention a couple of the picks from placements just to see what you guys think about it, because I know Kamazotz was towards the top. Amuzin Cobb was not only a top pick, he was a top ban, and I think except for like some Valks games and an SCC game, he had a 100% win rate by every other team that was there. So something to be a little worried about, I think, if you are either the Scarabs or the Dragons here. Hazer, what do you think's going to persist from what we last saw to today and this weekend?
I think we're definitely going to continue to see a lot of this hunter mid, magical hunter in the dual lane type style comps. We might even see double hunter a fair bit as well. Bans to start with seem to be focused towards the solo lane from the Dragons though, which that AMC still available, Zeus still available thus far. So the picks that we've mentioned that these teams have done great with are still available for now.
And a lot of things that can be very worrisome for him. I mean, you look at the Hell, that feels very Hurrywind, and honestly, just kind of overall meta-centric. Mercury is straight up Sam for soccer. Literally nobody else has played him this year except for Sam, and he's done a lot of winning. He has like an 88 or higher % win rate on that god, so it makes sense for that to get banned out. Whereas on the other side, you've got a couple of what feel like Solar Troll-specific bans, then of course Stewart, who has been loving this Izanami, rounded out with his Ola run. So far, Taco, nothing crazy standing out.
Actually, I think that the Hell and the Ola run definitely
yeah?
stand out a fair bit for me here, because that just screams individual style play that we're trying to eliminate from the team fight, because Sanctify Field, huge ultimate that can really shift just about any sort of team fight potential. But I'm also looking at the Izanami. It just seems as though JADE Dragons are a little bit more prioritized around trying to get rid of those outright clear laning matchups, and seeing that Yemoja lock in instantly, it comes as no real surprise. It's something Broken is bound to get through here, and I think the JADE Dragons couldn't be more satisfied with the Yemoja pick.
Yeah, it feels, I mean, again, when the Scarabs play it, it's not necessarily been the biggest deal. When Mike plays it, that, yeah, you're winning those games most of the time, so it's an easy lock-in for him. Hazer, it's the Amus and Cobb to answer, and we had mentioned Zeus, he's still on the table. It seems like PandaCat doesn't have any qualms about this Amus and Cobb getting locked in, but the Bastet alongside it, another one to mention, because she wasn't available when we watched placements. Now she's out here and available, and Scream loves her.
Scream is a Bastet specialist. He always has been. Season 4, I remember going up against Scream's Bastet on that Obey roster, and he crushed us into the ground. AMC mid for Baronic. But this Bastet, I think it's a great pick. It does really well into the Erlang Shen, which Sam might have looked for here. It has a great matchup into that, so we might not see that come through from Sam, and I think it just is a really strong jungler right now. That ult through the wall, so powerful.
Zhang Kui is another pick that, again, if you haven't, so like, let's throw it out there. For anybody who hasn't either watched SMITE this year or realistically in the last like 4 months, this pick should absolutely stand out to you as like I'm sorry, what? Why? Yeah, this is Worlds. Hurry has been winning with this. It's also something that they typically can throw to Fine OK and be successful with. It's still an outrageous pick. I'm not gonna gloss over it, but Taco, it's at least a little more common as of late.
Something that I really like about the JADE Dragons comp so far, though, is that you have to anticipate Bastet, especially with their surge of popularity off the most recent rework. She has been a prevalent pick so far in the meta. I guess hasn't really made its way into the competitive scene since the first time we're seeing it in a while, but there's a lot of just outright clear potential from the Solar Scarabs, but I like the restrictive measures that the JADE Dragons have opted for here. Even though Bastet has that ultimate that can pull through that Yemoja ultimate walls, I still think that Zhang Kui, Achilles, they're characters that can stun you right off the bat when you try to initiate. So if that's Bastet or Camazotz looking to get the ball rolling here for the Solar Scarabs, they're going to have to deal with a fair bit of crowd control out of the JADE Dragons first.
And that's the fun thing to think about, is when this Camazotz enters the equation, for 3 months, at least it felt like phase 2 into phase 3, it was top tier jungle. Like Layers probably would still be playing it in the jungle and still look really good with it, and I think most of the junglers are. But after the recent changes in 8.12, he really just cycled straight over into the solo lane again. And Hazer, it was devastating for a lot of people having to deal with that, not just in lane, but then late game. He gets out so easily, he survives so much. I mean, I look at Zhang Kui, I look at Achilles, it's damage, but I feel like this Camazotz might be able to run away at least a little bit for now.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see this Camazotz go so far down the list of picks here. Even 6th pick, Not that far down, but definitely has been a god we've seen really highly prioritized, especially at the play-ins. Final K opting for the Achilles over it, taking that away, I feel a little bit from Solar Troll. Solar Troll had a great performance on that in the event, and I think more than just the matchup being great, he's gone for that to take that away from Solo.
This is going to be a fun one to watch just because, as you mentioned, not just highly priority, he was the most first-pick god throughout all of placements. So a lot of pressure on that. The bans, though, coming through for the second phase. Susano and Erlang Shin banned out by the Scarabs, not wanting Sam to have anything over there. Terra taken away from inbound, and Charybdis taken away. And typically you'd think, well, they've already got Amus and Cop. Nope, that's Baronic's pick through and through. He's been loving that in mid. And so they're trying to cycle and stifle that mid lane a little bit. Taco, what other gods, when you see a Zhang Kui on the other side, what kind of gods start cycling through your mind to deal with that?
Well, one of the problems that I think the Solar Scarabs might have with this Jade Dragons draft so far is it is rather flexible. Achilles and Jean-Qui, they're not necessarily guaranteed to go into that solo mid lane role. There is a chance still, I think, for the Jean-Qui to be played by Fine. Okay, we've seen him take the Jean-Qui into the solo lane before. Achilles does have some flex potential into the jungle as well here for Sam, and again, I think that as far as the Jade Dragons are concerned, they have a slight edge in the sense that they just have that little bit more of crowd control that I think is going to be a bit more influential. But the Solar Scarabs, they seem to really be banking it on just trying to build a lead early on.
And that's something that we've seen them be successful with. That being said, we've also seen the Dragons absolutely run away with games within 5 minutes. So hopefully they're going to be able to find that early pressure. Fenrir, there's 3 assassins on this squad, so one of them has to go to the support. Fenrir feels like it is a little more through and through for inbound. But Hazer, you made a face when you saw it locked in. Are you enjoying it or a little confused?
I'm a little confused. We got 4 Fizz here with an AMC. Is there going to be a Freya for Stuart maybe? Is that going to be enough magical damage in of itself? I'm not sure. But this Awilix comes through for Sam. Wow, what an Awilix pick. Bastet, Camazotz, Fenrir, all pretty easy targets. AMC, no CC immunity to speak of. So if those beads are forced out and he gets knocked up by a Yamoja, pulled back in by that Awilix ult, I think this is a really great pick here by Sam.
We've been talking about needing Sam to go big. He set himself up for success. We'll just have to make sure it continues to follow through. It looks like they're cycling through a bunch of hunters now, so looking for a pick to throw over towards Panda Cat specifically. But it is interesting because, Taco, you had mentioned like the Jean-Qui being like essential to pivot. I was on board with that because I was like, yeah, Zeus is still up. Like, Hurry has done nothing but win with Zeus over the last 2 months, and yet they're not going to lock it in. They go for the Heimdall instead. Feels kind of safe in the duo lane.
Too much pick pressure, I feel like, from Bastet, Camazotz, and Fenrir. All of 3 of those characters, I think, are
Good
excellent
point.
at trying to punish and mobile mages like the Zeus. Heimdall, though, one of the safest hunters that you could honestly look for in that duo lane's really going to negate a little bit of that early to mid-game pressure potential that the Solar Scarabs would have probably been opting for otherwise. But I'm looking primarily towards the fact that there are so many knockups available to the Jade Dragons as well, coming from each of their, or at least from the duo lane heavily. The Yamoja and the Heimdall both have strong setup potential there for the Awilish, but it's primarily just the fact that aside from the Awilish semi-countering out some of those jump initiations, I think it's largely just the fact the Solar Scarabs, they are an all-or-nothing comp right now. This is just, you have to Wrecking Ball style of play, and if you don't find a pick early on in the fight, 4 Fizz could work against you.
And Hazer, you called it exactly as you saw. You saw 4 Fizz, you said Freya's the only one available with Olarun banned out. It doesn't feel like... Let's just face it, it's not a Chronos meta. We're not going to get that back. No Emilitos, no skins, NRG skins that we get to run through. But the Freya looked really good the last time we got to see the Scarabs play it. But at the same time, you're up against Yamoja Heimdall. It feels like it's not going to have the easiest time early, even with a Fenrir.
Yeah, I definitely think Stuart kind of got away with this Freya a little bit at the Warriors because the Warriors are so inactive, and that is one thing we have never accused the Jade Dragons of being as inactive, especially on that duo side of the map. How are you going to farm this one out? Are you going to be able to? I'm not sure, Stuart, and Inbound going to have to do a lot of work in this early game.
So are you feeling like the Dragons have a simpler path to victory throughout this one?
Much simpler. I also think their team fight is really, really good. I think it's really hard to look past them here. That Yamoja and Jean-Qui, the AoE denial there for this team, really, really strong.
Yeah, Taco, I see you nodding along. I assume you have very similar opinions.
Look, Amuzin and Freya, they're definitely known for dealing damage, but in order to deal that damage, you have to actually survive the team fight duration. And I just feel like there's going to be so many struggles because if you look at the disengage, Camazotz, Fenrir, Bastet, those aren't really characters that look for disengage. They want to initiate purely. And so with Freya and AMC, I think, especially the Freya, I would be surprised if she gets more than just that starting purple buff here. I want to see the Jade Dragons really looking to try and amp up the pressure on that duo side of the map, having opted for the Heimdall and Yamoja.
Honestly, even picking on it, even if they try to disengage, there's an Wheelish on the other side. Good luck getting away from the fight. And it feels like the Dragons have a little bit of an advantage coming into this from the draft, but we have, like you mentioned, the late game to look at when it comes down to it. Camazot's pretty survivable. You've got Amuz and Cobb and Freya who can hit hard. Like you said, they have to survive, but if they get there, they can hit pretty hard alongside this Bastet. And she's the wild card for me because even prior to her rework, I mean, we haven't seen her in ages. So, Hazer, is that enough of an offset for the Scarabs to find an advantage, or is it really going to be the struggle bus until they can get those 2 carries online?
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. We're going to need to see some beads forced out by inbound and punishes with the Bastet ult early on to get this team comp rolling, to get them going, and to carry them through to the late game. And even then, I'm not sure they've got it.
Well, for game 1, so far it feels like the Dragons seem to be favored pretty heavily here on the desk, which admittedly, if you look at the drafts, it feels that way. But luckily, the Scarabs have always been about subverting expectations, and that is what makes things a lot more interesting for them. We didn't even get to highlight, I think, the Achilles that much because it's kind of a given. I guess like it gets locked in. Nobody really double-checked it. But Taco, what does he bring to the composition alongside things like the Emoja for the front line?
He'll just be a solid stalemate up against that Camazotz if he is in the solo lane like it appears to be, because there's just really... Camazotz is known for being a bit of a lane bully, but the same could be said for Achilles. And if anything, I would also anticipate that the Achilles might have an advantage here.
Well, the quarterfinals kick off right now. It's going to go over for game number 1 to Dave and Agra.
It has brought us some of the most competitive Smite we have ever seen, and the SWC starts right now. JADE Dragons and Solar Scarabs in quarterfinals number 1. Dolson and Aggro on the mic. Doug, of course, working the cameras for this entire weekend. And Aggro, I think you look at Season 8 up to this point, you're looking at Dragons and Scarabs. You're giving Dragons the edge. Scarabs come into this matchup as the wild card team. They can compete with everyone.
Yep.
They've shown us their ability to stay in these sets. Anything, nothing guaranteed here in this first quarterfinal.
Absolutely not. This is a team that you can never overlook. And the JADE Dragons have been such a team that is impossible to nail down. We have no idea what type of performance we're going to see from them this weekend or this game or this minute of every game. That's kind of been their year so far. So I'm incredibly excited. I think this set has a chance to really be exciting.
And isn't it so fitting between these two teams, where jungle is so important on both of these rosters?
Yep.
We get a Wheelix for Sam and a Bastet for Scream to start off the SWC.
Hey man, I knew whenever I woke up today and it was a cold day in Georgia, I was thinking...
Doesn't happen often.
Doesn't happen often. It's because Bastet is going to get locked in for Scream. It just gets a little chilly whenever the GOAT starts to lock in his best god. And I thought that he might try and hold it down a little bit. I thought that he might try and play a little coy that, oh, I don't know how good she really is, guys. I don't know. This is what I expected overall, though. I think she's very strong.
Mid lane 2v2 will start early. Scream goes in and out. Hurrywind deals a good bit of chunk damage then on the other end, but Scream did have to use the beads. Might clip those wings a little bit in the first couple minutes.
Yeah, a little surprised. I guess he thought he might get all-in committed upon, but had pounce to get back. I don't know. Definitely a little bit of early game jitters, it looked like to me there for Scream. But I really like the Bastet pick in general. I think she's very, very strong. And it's interesting the way the Scarabs have decided to utilize it in this game, because her new ultimate is kind of like an on-demand Fenrir ultimate that you can use from a distance. You just hit the projectile, pull them in, and all of a sudden you've got a free kill. And so how do they combine that? Well, let's get the actual Fenrir ultimate. So the Scarabs are really here to try and separate this team fight. They want to start every single fight 5v4, because I think in an outright 5v5, I agree with Hazer and Taco on the desk. The JADE Dragons just have too much good team fight presence. Their AoE is fantastic between the Zhang Kui and the Emoji healing. They've got too much in those team fights 5-on-5. But the Scarabs comp is all about creating just misnumbered advantages, trying to separate one person, pull them back, kill them, and then start the fight 5v4. That's what's got to happen.
The question is then, JADE Dragons, Hurrywind, PBM, and PandaCat all start with beads. Sanford Soccer, Blink, Final K's gotten med over there in the solo lane. Is 3 sets of beads enough, Aggro, prior to level 12 to limit that Fenrir, limit that Bastet early here in game 1 as PBM drops down the purple buff?
And that was even with a hog use from inbound, so nice win for the JADE Dragons. They don't just get the golden experience from invading the purple, but they just cost inbound 100 gold on the Hand of the Gods that didn't get any value, so that ends up being doubly worth it for them on that invade. And in answer to your question, Dave, I think it can be enough, but it's really on this right side of the map for the JADE Dragons, because Sam and Fine are the 2 players that don't have those purification beads ready. And when you look at how the Solar Scarabs want to play these team fights, it's using their mobility in order to create those unnumbered advantages. Sam's going to be there to punish that. That's why this Willish pick is here. So if I'm the Scarabs, I'm seeing that Sam has gone Blink. That's greedy, gotta punish. And this game can become very easy for the Solar Scarabs. If Sam just falls really far behind and that Gravity Surge is no longer a threat, you know, he's not a threat walking around the map, it's gonna be very easy for them. But if they fall behind, if Sam gets ahead, this game becomes nearly impossible to win quickly, because just the way that a Willish works, she wants your back turned at all times.
Right.
You know, she wants to be able to knock you up with that Moonlit Charge. If you're running at her, she has no threat of knocking you up ever. And whenever you're running at her, it's when she's behind. If you're ahead, then if she's ahead, rather, she's going to be running you down. You're going to be turning your back to run away, and then she just gets even better from that position. So it's not just that she's good in the early game and her kit's good against what you've got, and any god with a lead is good. Awilish kind of gets like double the advantage from being ahead because it turns your player model a different way.
Running away from a Zhang Kui composition seems to be what could be happening at some point in this game if you're the Solar Scarabs. And I think the mid lane matchup throughout this set is going to be pivotal as well, because you talk about some of the struggles that not only the Jade Dragons but the Solar Scarabs have had throughout this year, the growth that Baronic specifically has shown us throughout all of Season 8, Hurrywind as well. That Giannis meta, Hurrywind was knock down, drag out every other mid laner here in the league. Purple buff looked at yet again by the Jade Dragons. Is it going to get taken away once more? Looks like it. Sam for Soccer heads left, and purple buff taken away.
And this is exactly what Hazer was just talking about on the desk, that Stewart gets away with this Freya pick against the Warriors because that's an inactive team in the early game. That is not the Jade Dragons. They are not letting you get anything for free, and already, you know, a noticeable lead for no kills on the board here for the Jade Dragons, and it's all centered on that left side of the map. And that's why this Achilles pick makes a ton of sense. That's why this Camazotz pick I don't really love, because I don't think Solar Patrol can really punish this lane matchup as some other Warriors could. It's more about surviving the laning phase, and Camazotz really can't die in the laning phase very easily.
Yep.
But he's not going to bully you out super hard, and Achilles isn't getting bullied out at all by anybody these days. That's why he's a top pick over here in the solo lane. So the Jade Dragons, I think, came in and knew exactly what the Scarabs were going to pick for Stewart and welcomed it with open arms.
It is an interesting, I think, conversation to have, Aggro, around the mentality of both of these teams. At a bare minimum, this set is going 3, of course, nature of best of 5. There's some quick math for you.
Whew.
But the difference in LAN, in Worlds set experience between these two rosters have to be looked at, I think. I mean, of course, Scream, been there, done that, right? But we talked about Baronic a moment ago. We talked about Stewart a moment ago. The leadership of the Solar Scarabs team and their ability to calm nerves and get the mental prep throughout this set going to be very, very important, because, you know, the growth of Baronic can't be understated. The growth of Stewart throughout this year can't be understated. You've just been playing SPL matches. You know, I don't want to discount any of those important games. These are the most important sets that these guys have ever played.
No doubt about it. And you know, I talked to Inbound after his interview earlier, if you missed it, during the pregame show, and he was saying on the interview that they really feel like there's no pressure on them, that all the pressure's on the Dragons. Scarabs aren't even supposed to be here with how this year started. And then he doubled down on it whenever I was talking to him. He was like, yeah, man, I'm chilling. I really don't feel like, you know, if we lose, we lose. I feel like we can win, and I feel like we will, but doesn't have to.
First Ragnarok of the set, and it's Panicat beneath the Tier 1 tower. Bifrost says bye-bye, and Panicat will live. Sanford Soccer's got Gravity Surge on the other end, and that's a great River's Rebuke. Knockups there as well. First blood, hello, Jade Dragon strike first.
Scream goes down on the signature Bastet, and Mike still putting good damage into Stewart and Inbound.
And third purple buff in a row.
Under the tower, and you know Stewart's not getting that one. Greedy usage, or lack thereof, of the beads from Panicat. He let himself go all the way under the tower before he decided to use beads to try and get out. But he still lives at the end of the day, and that's what matters. His beads are down, yes, and he doesn't get to participate in any of those kills, sure, but when you look at it from a top-down perspective, it's that simple. He lives, Scarabs don't, and they lose another purple on top of it.
Polar Bear Mike has just controlled the left side of the map so far, hasn't he, with the purple buff invades, the presence of mind to keep the Solar Scarabs dual lane pushed back a bit beneath their Tier 1 tower, and all of the chaos of picks and bans that we've seen so far, specifically around the jungle, a little bit in the mid lane as well. I don't think it can be understated how important it is that Mike got this Yemoja pick in game number 1. The ability for him to play the way that we know Mike wants to play is just expanded upon. It is multiplied when you give him a pick like the Yemoja.
Exactly. I mean, when you think of PBM's playstyle, of course, everyone's going to think of Fenrir and Serket and Hercules, you know, these gods that just dominate in the early game. But then also you've got this identity of him having a really, really good hold that thought, Sam's in trouble.
Sam gets pulled back in by Scream. Solo kill in the jungle, and the Solar Scarabs, when they need their jungler to step up big, he does so. 8 minutes in, Solar Scarabs answer back.
Perfect rotation in by Scream, and that's what we were talking about earlier. Sam doesn't have beads, and Scream does a good job of putting him in combat, making sure that he's not going to be able to blink away, and then just hits him with the ultimate. Sam never uses the jump and never gets a chance to. That holds you in place for a long time, that Huntress of Bast, so ends up being an easy kill there for Scream, which is exactly what the doctor ordered for the Solar Scarabs. Just in the name of pure confidence there for
Agreed.
Scream. I mean, he gets basically 1v1'd in that first blood. Only Mike gets an assist on that first blood kill for Sam. They kind of met in this Harpy Pit when the primary fight was happening in the dual lane. Big in order to end up trying to get it there.
All right, so Hog gets used this time by Inbound.
Did he
Looks
get
like
it?
purple buff got secured by the
All right.
Solar Scarabs this time. So that is the first in like 4 purple buffs that the Scarabs have gotten. But now there's pressure on the red buff as well. Inbound alone with 4 members of the Jade Dragons. This red buff is an afterthought. So where's the numbers advantage? Well, it's nowhere. Half your team is coming out of the base if you're the Solar Scarabs. And so the red buff relatively free. The first Gold Fury of Worlds will be pulled by the Jade Dragons. And judging by the positioning of the Solar Scarabs, it will be taken by the Jade Dragons. This gold lead is about to blow up. It was about 2K. We'll make our way up to 3.
Yeah, that's as easy as it comes for the Jade Dragons, and it's just their game plan is working perfectly so far. We are pressuring the left side of the map. We are not letting Stewart get any farm for free. Panda Cat's got a 2-level lead. Mike's got a 2-level lead. And they're sacrificing some neutral camps for it. I mean, Hurry's a little bit behind Baronic, but overall, a great start for the Scarabs.
Inbound, and Scream and Baronic. They're all here on the red buff. Hurry went pops his ultimate, but Ragnarok brings the Jean Kui right back. There is another answer from the Solar Scarabs, but now Sam for Soccer's gone in alone. He's not able to get the kill on a Scream. He will jump out. Gravity Surge delays things just for a moment, but the Scarabs pull back 2 kills.
Sam going in that 1v3. I mean, you see the composition working perfectly for the Scarabs. They want to separate you and then punish you for not having your purification beads. And Scream picks up Hurry, ends up using the beads because he'll die if he doesn't. And then it's Ragnarok right after that, and he's dead because he's going to be walking straight into a stinger. But then Sam's decision to go in that 1v3, I mean, at best, he's trading 1-for-1 and giving an assist over to Whirlwind. At worst, he doesn't end up doing anything and just gives another kill over to the Solar Scarabs. But even in that 1-for-1 scenario, it's still a 2-for-1 overall for the Scarabs, and 2 members of Scarabs would get assists for the kill onto Sam, whereas only 1 gets the assist there for the Jade Dragon. So I don't like that decision to go in at all by Sam.
You feel like that's what the Scarabs have to do at this point, right? It felt like in the first 8-9 minutes of this game, it was just a slow bleed on the left side of the map. All this pressure, it's given Panda Cat a couple levels of lead over Stewart. He's going to 1v3 this purple buff. Panda Cat is going to go in? Are you kidding me? He's got the ultimate off, and it's Scream who'll be crashing back down to earth and down to death. PBM completes the execute. Purple buff, who cares? Jade Dragons grab a kill.
And that's exactly what you want from this lead that you've established. You know, you got to give the ball to someone whenever all this farm is happening. Who are we giving it to? Giving it to Maxim Janovic, it's definitely a good idea by my estimation. This guy has been doing it at the world stage for a long, long time. Very impressive at this time of year, and ends up making a nice play there. Sets up for his team to rotate in. Mike's the one who gets the kill, but we know the one who did the work.
Now, Aggro, game 1 far from over. Going to be made easier if the Jade Dragons can get this Pyromancer inbound over the wall. Don't think he's looking for the steal, and the Jade Dragons grab the Pyro. This is a very long set. Depending on how this works out, the ebbs and flows of picks and bans are going to be very interesting. Stewart loves these magical ADCs. Are you willing to mortgage your early game on the left side of the map, give the Jade Dragons that type of advantage? Because if Panda Cat is able to take this 3-level lead, springboard it, and Mike with a 2-level lead, springboard that into the mid into the late game, well, it's pretty clear where the weak side of the map was just by character selection here in game 1. And so the question then becomes, does Stewart have enough time to spool up here on this Freya? You're 3 levels down, you've got a ring and 2/3 completed in that back pocket, and nothing has been given for free.
Exactly, and this lead doesn't stay forever, right? I mean, eventually, Panda Cat's going to hit 20 sooner rather than later. My man is level 14 at 12 minutes and 40 seconds into the game. But eventually, that lead is going to diminish. Eventually, he won't have any more items to build. And eventually, Stewart is going to get to late game Freya, which is going to be a problem. So the Jade Dragons certainly need to not just play for purples and reds. You know, through the first 13 minutes or so, taking away most of them is an absolutely fine situation. They got a Gold Fury already. You know, trying to to put that pressure on the left side of the map, but now FineOK is unlocked on that right-hand side as he pushed that tower down all by himself. Already knocked it down. 5v5 groupings is where the JADE Dragons are strongest, and that's what they should be doing.
Hey, purple buff's up. That means JADE Dragons are here. Red buff's up. That means they're here as well. Solar Scarabs might show some face this time. Purple buff is an afterthought as PandaCat grabs that one. Hurrywind and inbound, dueling it out a bit as River's Rebuke goes up from Mike. Does trap Veronica, but there's no one there to call him on. It looks like red buff was taken by the JADE Dragons, but up and over the wall goes Scream. Ragnarok onto one, and it's Polar Bear Mike right on the other side of the Riptide. Here comes Sot, and he's on the backside of this fight, but Sam for Soccer will jump his way on out. Bat out of Hell swoops through. No one dead yet.
Hurry's going to have a huge ult here. Scream's already gone. PandaCat took care of him, and this is exactly where the JADE Dragons want the Scarabs.
SOT, he lives, but not for much longer. PandaCat will capitalize on a 3-level lead. Double kill for the Heimdall, and the JADE Dragons, they will take red, they will take purple, they will take 3, and they'll take it to go.
And Stuart was never even a part of that conversation. He was coming back from base, and PandaCat is the lead right now for the JADE Dragons. So to take a fight around his side of the map is already a little bit sketchy, and then you do it without Stuart there. Sure, Solar Patrol beat FineOK on the rotation, and I'm seeing Solar Patrol come in from the right, and I'm thinking, all right, this could be good for the Solar Scarabs, and then I just do a quick pan of where's PandaCat? Ah, he's in the fight. Scarabs can't win. They can't win. He's too big right now. He has too much farm, and unless he is the one caught out first, I don't see a world in which the Scarabs can actually win a 4-on-4 or a 5-on-5 with PandaCat's name in the equation. And as soon as PandaCat came around this little harpy pit right underneath here,
you knew it.
That's when the fight started to turn quickly.
Stuart is 1 level behind Polar Bear Mike to give you extra emphasis on the way the left side of the map has gone. Eventually, this is going to trickle on over to right. SOT and FineOK both rotated through into that fight, so we saw the solo laners for the first time this game. Looked good for FineOK, not great for Sot, who's also 2 levels down in that fight. It's around this FG aggro, and this is a JADE Dragons team. They will push down on the gas, they will keep the lead rolling. They are not afraid of pulling early Fire Giants. Could be on the menu here in the next couple minutes.
I think it easily could be, because PandaCat's going to have enough damage soon to be able to do it. He's already got his Wind Demon working on an Executioner. Once you get those 2 items, Fire Giant is now on the table as a hunter, basically any time. And even though we haven't seen Sam for Soccer on this Awillish just dominate all these leap characters, it's about the implication, Dave. That's what's important for the Awillish, is that it just means that you can't play aggressively around her ever. So even if she's not killing you
because of the implication.
Because of the implication. It's just making it very hard for you to execute on your game plan. Sometimes that's enough.
Oh man, that's a lot of damage from FineOK. Stuart. That looks like he won a bit of a scrap there with PandaCat.
He crushed him.
Who had to Bifrost away.
4 levels down.
Yeah, it's a 4-level differential. A full item. An item in 2/3 even.
Did Panda's monitor turn off?
Yeah, I'm not sure what happens there, but the implication of that moment is that maybe Stuart's starting to realize that he can output some decent damage, depending, of course, on what happens there on left. But far cry from what we've seen happening as PandaCat has to find an early exit.
Yeah, that's surprising. I want to see what happened over here. We got a quick replay of PandaCat trying to take this 1v1 up against Stuart. Maybe.
And the banish was gone?
Yeah, I'm very surprised. I mean, I watched him walk up from this position, and I'm thinking, Stu's in a little bit of trouble here. He's not, by the way. Freya, by the way. 4 levels down, by the way.
That was like 2 auto attacks away from a solo. 4 levels down onto PandaCat. All right.
Okay.
Stu showing up a bit when his team needs him.
And I think that really does give Stu some confidence, right? Because he has been a non-factor in this game. The Dragons have made sure of that. That's been their game plan, and they've executed it very well. The Scarabs have not been able to defend. Really not their fault. I think it's really composition-based, though you could argue that's their fault. But Stuart just knowing that, I just crushed that guy.
Yeah, I can
in
box
the 1v1,
him a bit, right?
Down 4 levels. I think that might be, things were starting to look ugly for a little bit. Maybe they're starting to feel a bit better.
Pivotal for Sot to survive here on the right side of the map because the time has arrived. 2 minutes since we brought it up. The JADE Dragons are going to pull the FG, but look at the Solar Scarabs. 4 members are mid or left on the map at least. It's only SOT who's over here on right. He has Bat out of Hell, but he will not make an attempt. The JADE Dragons, sub 18 minutes, will grab the first Fire Giant of Worlds, and they will continue to snowball in game 1.
I'd like to remedy my statement. I think the Scarabs did know, and they know also that it didn't matter if they knew that they can't do it. They just can't do it. on that right-hand side. They never win a 5-on-5 in this position. You have to try and take it on your Phoenix. And again, we're going to have to watch. How can they use these ultimates? Can Scream hit an ultimate on a priority target, force those beads, and then allow inbound to go in and be the follow-up, or vice versa? Either way, they've got to separate a priority target from the rest of the team, because if they let the Dragons group up, I don't see how they beat them.
Jump in from inbound onto PandaCat, who has used his beads. Bifrost awaiting on the other end. Riptide there from Mike as well, but that'll send SOT forward. Scream jumps up and over the wall. Big 1v1 here as PandaCat is pulled back into Scream, back into the quicksand, but the River's Rebuke from Mike separates out the Solar Scarabs. Bat out of hell says goodbye to the 3-level lead of PandaCat. Save for Soccer, goes back through, execute range on Sot, but Final K not there to collect. Solar Scarabs find one.
And I just hate that decision from the Dragons to group up at that point because they don't have Whirlwind. They haven't been able to back and spend their gold. The Scarabs just take a good fight there. The JADE Dragons just kind of assuming surely the Scarabs are just going to roll over and let us take this tier 2. But the Scarabs show up, and they do exactly what we were just talking about. Inbound, gets beads from a priority target, gets ultimate from a priority target, and that lets Scream come in and do his job, which is clean up that 1v1.
Now, Aggro, something we haven't talked about much because all of the pressure has been against the Solar Scarabs. There's a similar level lead for the Solar Scarabs in the mid lane. Baronic, 3 levels up, level 19 to 16 over Hurrywin. That's the exact same level lead that PandaCat had over Stewart, and Stewart, a little bit of free time on the map here to farm on up, should be able to close that XP gap just a little bit. Playing around the mid lane, pivotally important here for the Solar Scarabs over the next few minutes.
Level 19 now for Baronic.
Titan's Bane.
And has a Titan's Bane, nearly has a Stinger back up and available. It's a good call. And that, you know, this focus from the JADE Dragons, it doesn't come for free. You know, you have to lose something, and it's usually mid-harpy control, specifically on that right-hand side. It means that Whirlwind has to cheat all the way over to the duo lane in order to help support on some of these invades, whereas Baronic is free to go farm backs, you know, go get a mid-wave and push that in. It does cost you something in order to do these things, and it's all about that give and take. You know, is this worth Whirlwind falling a little bit behind in order to get PandaCat really ahead? And so far, it certainly has been, even with PandaCat taking that last death.
JADE Dragons still have 4 on the FG, everyone but PandaCat, and you got 1 minute and 20 seconds left to get a little extra gold, knock down these last couple of towers, set up a win condition for yourself as game 1 rolls on. But we have officially gotten a bit out of control in the gold department, but Inbound didn't get the memo. He's got Hurrywind instead, who uses both of his actives, but the Jean Quivo live on Stinger flies out as well. The JADE Dragons grouping as 5 protect their mid.
Man, that's a couple of times, though, Dave, that we see these backliners get picked up by the Ragnarok, and they take the scenic route. They take the leisurely stroll, and then at the end go, I guess I'll beads. You know, that's twice now, and that just can't continue to happen. It's either we're using it or we're not.
Oh, Inbound pulled back through. That's a Riptide for Mike, who's got another 2 underneath the tier 1, or tier 2 tower rather, in mid. And the JADE Dragons will knock down the final tower on the map that the Solar Scarabs had standing. 3 Phoenixes exposed, and the Fire Giant will fall off in 30. The Solar Scarabs will have the wherewithal that the next FG is going to be coming up, might be able to defend.
And the way that this defense ends up happening for the Scarabs, and for the record, I think only losing an Oni Fury and 2 tier 2s at this point in the game is a great defense for the Solar Scarabs, considering the game state, is because of this relic usage and the picks from the Scarabs onto the JADE Dragons. I mean, PandaCat not having beads because he got picked on that right-hand side means that they can't siege Phoenix until his beads are back up. The Scarabs composition is just simply too good at picking him up and pulling him in and killing him instantly, and that's where the majority of this lead is. And then Hurrywin not using his beads initially and having to use his Aegis upon landing as well, whereas if he would have just insta-beads as soon as he gets picks up, then he can still use his Aegis. Then even if he gets picked up on a Phoenix, he can still press Aegis and get his value out. And that's really all that matters out of this Jean Qui. So I really think that the JADE Dragons missed some opportunities with the way that they played these engagements. They're still up 10K at 22 minutes. Don't get me wrong. You know, it's not gonna necessarily spell the end of the game, but it could.
But if there are avenues back into a game like this for the Solar Scarabs, it's moments like that.
Exactly.
Simply opening up the opportunity for a comeback here. And that's always, I talk about the X factor, the unknown with the Solar Scarabs team is that comeback potential. Whether it's game 1 in a comeback in a game like this or a comeback in a set in general, the Solar Scarabs have not counted themselves out of any of their sets so far here as of late. This team playing some of their best Smite, and they'll need to play some more of it in game 1 and in game 2 and on if they want to have a chance against this Jade Dragons team who are playing out of their minds to start off the SWC. Fire Giant is up. SOT is close. Riptide into Gravity Surge. Cannot press buttons, but he presses the most important one, and that is ult. But it is to get on out. Jade Dragons will take the second FG of the game.
Yeah, they know SOT doesn't have beads. He went Blink and Meditation, so he knows that's a pretty free one if we can pull him in. I like the idea to try and CC chain him just short on damage.
Whoa! What? Stuart! What? Before my eyes, as God is my witness, Stuart is gone. The Jade Dragons and Sanford Soccer specifically delete the Freya. There will be no late game. Not right now. Level 18 on Stuart, and it'll stay that way.
Stu! 4 Aegis?
No, we don't have time for that. We don't have time for any of that. Sam is going too quick, and so is the right side Phoenix. Now is the time for the Solar Scarabs to put up their defense, but Inbound has gone in alone, and he will jump out alone. Right side Phoenix gone.
And that's easy, because it's a 5v4, and Stewart's not up for another 20. And I think the Jade Dragons should be able to get this mid one as well with their mid wave here. And even though I didn't like Sam playing so aggressively earlier, hard to argue with that one, right? Playing with confidence.
This Phoenix is absolutely melting. You got 10 seconds left till Stu is back on the map. Beats down from Hurrywind once more. Fine, okay. The spearhead of this Jade Dragons team walks in towards the mid lane, crossing all of our T's and dotting all of our I's. The Jade Dragons shift to left.
Man, it just seems clinical right now from the Jade Dragons, but they don't have a wave here on the left-hand side. And now Stewart is up, and Hurrywind doesn't have beads. This is the least free Phoenix of them all. Frankly, I'm a bit surprised that Jade Dragons are still here.
They're sticking around. 2.5 minutes on their Fire Giant buff. The Solar Scarabs got to get something done now. Doesn't look much better underneath your Titan. Scream agrees. Walks in, takes damage, walks out. But Polar Bear Mike now banished. Can you capitalize on the Emojo who's up in the air? No, you can't. The Riptides have been on point all game long. And this one, no different.
Still no wave, and it's not coming anytime soon, so this is
so
exactly what it is for the Jade Dragons.
Whoa, Gravity Surge on the Sot, but this time Bat Out of Hell follows right on the other end. Inbound's gotta leave, and River's Rebuke will keep Sot right where he's at on the other end of his ultimate. Panda Cat boxing it out with the Kamazots. Final K banished up into the nether, but down he goes. Sanford Soccer melting away. Baronic putting out damage. Baronic finds a big kill into the left side Phoenix.
And the left side Phoenix still standing. The Solar Scarabs now still with 5, gonna try and catch this Jade Dragons roster.
Whoa, Final K finds a nice stun. There is some sustain from PBM.
Oh, they got
but
Panda.
There's an ultimate on a Panda Cat. His beads immediately used. And that'll put the Heimdall right where he's at. The Solar Scarabs show up. Only find one onto Sam, but lose both right and mid Phoenixes.
Yeah, their Titan's going to take a bit of damage as well, but that doesn't matter too much. I mean, the Jade Dragons knew that was risky. But at the end of the day, I mean, even let's say the worst case scenario happens there and all 5 members of the Jade Dragons get wiped. They can't lose. You know, it's too early in the game. There's too many towers up. So it's a calculated risk there for the Scarabs, or for the Dragons rather, to say, hey, we could just win right now, or we could lose a little bit of momentum. You know, this was going to put some pause on their advantages, but what is there to take anyways, Dave? I mean, the only structure on the map is the left side Phoenix. You could fight over Pyro, but if you're going to fight over Pyro and the Scarabs are going to be there, I think that's a trade you're very happy with if you're the Jade Dragons. They're in a commanding position now.
All right, here's the good news. There is some to be found.
Okay.
Everyone in the game outside the supports, level 20. So XP, the 3 to 4 level gap that we've been talking about for Panda Cat, doesn't matter. Here's the bad news. Stu's a full Deathbringer-esque item down going into these next fights, and an upgraded starter.
Yeah, that's a lot of gold.
So we're not loving the
that's like 4,500 gold.
Right, we're not loving the 13,000 gold differential.
No.
XP-wise, we've caught up. The gold, not so much. Takes a little bit of time to get there. So the Jade Dragons still have this mountain of an advantage. And fine, okay, I don't think the 0-0-2 KDA has shown how important this Achilles has been over these last few fights. The damage plus presence of mind from Fino has kept the Solar Scarabs back and has opened the door for Panda Cat to keep doing what he is, and Hurrywind to walk forward as well.
Yeah, your shout on Final K is fantastic, because he got a multi-man stun in that fight. He actually blocked a stinger that would have insta-killed Sam and slowed that fight down a lot.
Wow, Inbound and the Jade Dragons, we're fighting here. It's an ultimate out from Panda Cat. Ragnarok in onto Hurrywind, who uses his beads. Gravity Surge onto Sot. Bat Out of Hell once again with a sliver of HP. That'll put the Solar Scarab solo laner out of the fight. Left side Phoenix is going to go down here as the Jade Dragons as 3 find the River's Rebuke. Inbound does not have his ultimate, but he does have his leap. Fine, okay, who else walks into 5 in the Solar Scarabs? They will turn their eyes towards Hurrywind, jumping back through. Big banish on a Fino.
That huge banish was big, but it still ends up with the Scarabs down with 0 Phoenixes. Their right side Phoenix has respawned, And it
One
actually could survive. Stewart here. No! The Fire Archers get the job done, and this sets up the Jade Dragons beautifully for yet another Fire Giant. And this idea that Sot has not gone beads, it's all these Riptides from Mike. That's how he's getting pulled back off these gravity surges. It's not like Solar Troll is just using his jump all over the place and not really taking a care in the world, getting knocked up by Sam from max range, which should be impossible. It's PBM making these plays happen with these max range Riptides.
How many times have we seen Bat Out of Hell used aggressively? I'd say maybe once. Polar Bear Mike is going to have to use a Riptide on himself here. Catches 2 of the Solar Scarabs as well. Are we fighting over the FG? It's not even enhanced just yet. The Solar Scarabs and SOT specifically, once again, used a Bat Out of Hell. Ragnarok also down, so is Gravity Surge.
Yeah, that's still a fine trade, I think, for both sides. You know, you don't end up using too much, but it's positional advantage as FinoK continues to push forward.
Oh my god, it is an absolute onslaught from this Achilles as FinoK will not be denied. 1 minute away from Enhanced Fire Giant here for the Jade Dragons. The Solar Scarabs have not shown up to the previous 2 FGs. Hard pressed to see a world where they show up to this one. Gonna have to be
Wonder if they try
maybe
and
mid lane
wait?
Phoenix,
No.
maybe Titan defense here for the Scarabs, but the Jade Dragons, you got one grouping as 5 to give you a 1-0 lead.
Yeah, I think that that's all it's going to take from this position, because the Scarabs have come close in a couple of these fights, but it's never been, you know, oh, they nearly team wiped them there. It was,
Right.
oh, we almost killed another
We
player.
almost got a kill.
You know, yeah,
Right.
we almost got 2 instead of just 1 in that situation, whereas the Jade Dragons have been hovering the knife at the throat of the Scarabs basically since the game started.
Well, since we last checked in on Stewart's build, he's upgraded his starter item. That's it. Still a full item down under Panda Cat, but you are a late game Freya. We need you to stand up big.
Got
if
to.
you're the Scarabs or a Scarabs fan or one of their players, this is the moment where these late game builds start to find their impact. The Jade Dragons as 5 are in the mid. They have all the time in the world on left and right. The Fire Minion waves will be pushing in there.
Yep.
You can buy your time and you can find the engage that works for you.
No reason to lose your patience now if you're the Jade Dragons. Just let these fire waves push, let them get into the base, and force Solar Scarabs to make some tough decisions. Now, it is good that their Titan is pretty healthy here for the Scarabs, but that's still both sides of fire waves.
Someone might have to shift over to right here soon. Fire Minions are going to be on to the Titan as the Jade Dragons posture forward just a bit more. FinoK, he's under the Phoenix, then has taken effectively no damage.
None.
Up to this point, the Solar Scarabs have lost half of the HP on the mid lane Phoenix. Fire Minions pouring down the right side, left side as well.
Watch out for this mantle here for Solar Troll. That's going to mean if they pull him in, he's going to get a big stun.
Yeah, good point. Need a big stun under the Jade Dragons.
There's
Inbound
one.
into the back. Hurrywind uses both of the actives to stay alive, but the beads time out, and that'll pull him right back into the awaiting arms, and they will
That's a lot of
finally get the
damage.
kill. Scream finds the opening kill
Panda.
on the Hurrywind. The Jade Dragons re-engage, and Sanford Soccer has got the kill. Half
The Titan.
HP on everyone. Titan down beneath half as well. The Jade Dragons buy their engage, and they'll take game 1.
That is just absolutely dominant from the Jade Dragons. They thought they could get away with this late game scaling on that left-hand side, and just when you thought maybe Stewart could start to make an impact, Sam two-shotted him on that right side. That was impressive from the Jade Dragons. They came in with a game plan. They seemed prepared for what the Solar Scarabs were going to do, and their game plan worked to perfection.
And again, this is something that the Scarabs have had to fight against with these double hunter, magical ADC on left compositions, where you're hoping that the lead doesn't get so out of control that we can buy our time.
Right.
Unfortunately, it just felt like even though the levels caught up, gold was never quite there for Stu, and the Jade Dragons just had all this momentum, the buzzword of the weekend for sure, and they're able to roll through, find game 1. Time for the Scarabs to bounce back in game 2, coming up next.
Technically have Fire Giant for FinoK, and he is under this Phoenix with his team. Layers, Aurora putting up a defense here, and they are the only one to do 1 damage is coming out. Layers is just gone. I've never seen that bounce before. Not once have I ever seen it used that way. I don't think Layers had either, man. That is nuts.
dig. Jag försökte byta tanke till dig. Jag försökte lämna dig. Fast jag vet att jag hade lämnat dig. Det var länge sedan vi sågs.
Well, the Jade Dragons strike first here at SWC, and they look good doing so. Very, very clean game from the Dragons up against the Scarabs. But game one, I'm going to give the credit. I don't know if this counts as credit, but their game ones are usually shaky at best. So we still have some hope for the rest of the set. Of course, all of this, though, is powered by Alienware. And for those of you at home who are thinking, man, I really need either A, new PC, or B, a new laptop that's stronger than most PCs, well, I've got good news for you. You can go to twitter.com/SmitePro, enter a giveaway for the Alienware M17. You see these things we're using on the desk, they're M15. So this is even a step above what we've got going for us. A 2070. See, like, for your graphics, that's already insane. I'm just going to stop there. But also a terabyte SSD, which has me, like, for computer science, it's like a dream. Actually, honestly, for gaming, that's a dream to be able to have. So perfect computer for you to go pick up. Plus, it's a laptop, which means it's mobile, so it's even stronger. Again, twitter.com/SmitePro in order to pick that one up. And then maybe you, too, can grind as hard as these Dragons have to get themselves a first win. Start off with their right foot forward. And it's pretty much what y'all said. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. They kind of said it already. They did the whole thing. I mean, there was a moment during that game, Hazer, where it looked like maybe Stewart would be able to step up. Like, ooh, this Freya hits pretty hard. And then Sam saw to that to never happen again.
Yeah, pretty tough. I mean, you're out there, your first World Championship appearance, you get put as the god to carry it through, and then Sam absolutely styles on you with the AOE. So it's not going to do wonders for your confidence.
And we got to see some Bastet, Taco, but ultimately it seemed like the CC immunity that the Dragons had kind of ignored her for the most part. I mean, not a lot of damage from the jungle. Everybody else on the Dragons, I mean, you every now and then saw, Zhang Kui get pulled, and Hurry just kind of laughed it off while he walked away.
And we even saw so many instances, I would say, of the Jade Dragons refusing to outright use their purification beads in some instances where Ragnarok or that Bastet ult was applied just because they assumed, I might actually be fine without having to burn the beads here. And more often than not, they were right. It did cost them a couple of times. So not exactly the smoothest run through from the Jade Dragons around some of those sieges. I think that they did play it a little bit hesitant at times, but at the end of the day, they knew that they could just pretty much pile drive right through, and that's exactly what we saw from Sam, especially on that Awelish. Again, highlighting that Freya instance over by the right side Phoenix. That certainly is not great for the mental, so to say, but it is only game one. It's a possible best of 5 here, and I think more importantly than anything else, Stuart just has to keep in mind, yeah, I'm Freya, yeah, I got picked, but I'm also playing Freya with literally 0 frontline, which is by far worst case scenario for any Hunter player.
There were a lot of opportunities. I mean, even that one is a perfect example, right? If you have a tank that can peel for you, it's much easier. I mean, it's not something we've seen in a long time, but like Ymir, hey, I've got a wall, I've got a freeze. Anybody with a stun is really going to be able to help out a little bit more. But we got to see it a lot, and you'll see him maybe on the receiving end of this, right there. Solar Troll, Hazer, wasn't really that tanky for a lot of these fights.
No, he decided to go without the beads, and that got really, really well punished by the combination of PVM and Sam. With the 3 into the Gravity Surge there coming out the Awilix. He was pulled back in consistently, and before the fight started, he was 1 HP and swooping his way out of there, and then just had very little impact in those fights.
And speaking of PVM, there's no way he gets the Emoja again, right?
He shouldn't.
Like, legally, he should not. Like, it's in the contract somewhere.
I have a feeling that we might be seeing that possibility of the Mercury ban or even the Hell ban not really be as heavily prioritized here for the Solar Scarabs. Emoja, if you're going to prioritize the likes of Freya or even the Amus and Cobb response pick initially from the Solar Scarabs, I would not want to be taking that Amus and Cobb straight into the Emoja matchup because best case scenario, you have a little bit of lane control during the laning phase, but as soon as it devolved into the team fighting aspect, Jade Dragons just had full control. They completely picked apart that duo side of the map as well with the jungle. We saw plenty of buff invades. That was exactly what I was looking for leading into this one.
Yeah.
So if anything, the Jade Dragons kind of made a statement with their first game to the Solar Scarabs in that they're not going to let that duo lane be a walk in the park like kind of what we saw with the Freya picks up against the Warriors during placements.
It's definitely something you're going to have to deal with. I want to remind you, though, if you're watching at home, that you can tweet at us at SmitePro using hashtag SWCAtHome, and of course, get featured on the broadcast. Also, not only rooting for the Dragons, already pretty happy, right? Because you've got one game under your belt, but watching, I'm assuming with your daughter right there, yelling and cheering all weekend long for the Dragons. And right now, I'm sure you're very, very happy, relaxing. And of course, a nice, comfortable at-home setting for yourself. So I'm sure you can all get featured as well. Just make sure you tweet at us, again, at SmitePro, and use hashtag SWCAtHome. And hopefully, the team that you're rooting for is winning out there. Otherwise, I mean, there's a lot of Scarabs fans, a lot of people rooting for them that know Game 2 is where things can really start to turn around. That's actually the biggest debate that we've been having, I want to say, like, all year, is which one is the most important in a best of 5. Whichever one, if you think it's Game 1 or Game 2, either one of those is gone. The other one's about to be finished. And if you're the Scarabs, you cannot, Hazer, let the Dragons win this one.
Yeah, I think this is really important for the Scarabs. I mean, they're kind of new to the SWC stage. They're not the most experienced team on this stage. And if they were to go down 2-0, I worry about them. I worry about how they'd respond. We have seen them respond pretty well against the Oni Warriors in the long time ago at the start of the play-ins when those two teams faced off in their first matchup. They did manage to respond to going behind against the Warriors, but can they do that against a team as suffocating as the Dragons? I'm not sure.
That'll be interesting to see how they adapt to this one. I was looking at it just to see if the SWC bingo had specifically a reverse sweep. Mifflin Grabs the Broom, I guess, is technically under that category, but it was just 5-game banger. The Scarabs gave us a lot of those over a lot of their last few sets. I mean, they tend to go the distance as far as they can, but you can kind of see, I think, Bobby feeling a little bit of the stress there. Taco, it feels like a lot changes almost up front for the Scarabs, right? I mean, you had mentioned it, but like the bands almost have to shift. Hell, Mercury, Olarun just did not hit the notes they needed it to.
I would be very surprised to see the Solar Scarabs get their hands on Olarun, though, because JADE Dragons, if they've been paying any attention, like I'm sure they have been, there's just no realistic way for the Olarun to slip through the cracks here. And if anything, it's honestly a little bit weird here that Solar Scarabs, they're actually prioritizing that secondary pick. And it looks as though they're going to stick true to their guns, at least from that first go-around. If they don't take out the Emoja here, I'd have to imagine that the JADE Dragons would just offer it again.
Well, they'd go instead for the Amus and Cobb, which is very notably not Yemoja, so you are absolutely right that the Dragons are going to lock it in right here. But AMC, I mean, I mentioned it at placements, save for Valks and I think one of the SCC teams, 100% win rate, primarily through mid, though, Hazer. It doesn't feel like something that Hurrywin's going to pull out often.
No, yeah. I don't know if it's a hurry pick. We haven't seen him on it, I don't think. We've seen him on the Neath as his Hunter mid, and that's about all we've seen him pull out. As this Olarun did get through this time and will be picked up, that is the switch up. I'm surprised that the Scarab stuck with second pick, but at least they've switched up their Mage ADC pick. No more Freya. Olarun, I think, going to be a lot more effective and let them get to the teamfight stage. And maybe if they hold out like they did in the last game, they might be able to win fights if there's an Olarun there and that Sanctified Field's coming through.
Taco, how do you feel about the Yemoja over the Olarun? Because I know we were talking about it, like how that is, it feels like a win condition for the Scarabs to have this pick. And we know that the Yemoja isn't necessarily the end-all be-all for them.
It might just turn into that situation here for whoever's piloting the Olarun. I'd have to figure probably more likely to be in Stuart's hands, but I'd still view it as all the same because Yemoja, as long as she has that River's Rebuke, it's just you're like, I'm not trapped in here with you, you're trapped in here with me. Anytime that Sanctified Field comes out, I would imagine those Yemoja walls are going to follow immediately after. The Zhongqi as well introduces a lot of that same old control of space, and between Zhongqi and the Yemoja, it's going to be a little bit difficult, I'd imagine, for this Olarun to really maneuver.
Difficult to stand forward the way that we need Stuart to. I mean, after last game, it feels like all of the Scarabs need to step up, but Stuart specifically has had a magnifying glass on him. Especially, I mean, rookie season, you have to think about it. This guy hasn't actually even been playing in the SPL for a full year at this point. So on the world stage, a lot of pressure to perform. The Wheelish pick comes back, though. And this one stands out, Hazer, because last time it was into the Fenrir, the Camazotz, the Bastet, and an Amus and Cobb. Very easy to deal with. Olarun's still easy to deal with. Bastet's still there, but it feels a lot earlier.
Yeah, I guess this must be something the Dragons have been practicing. They must be really confident in this combination of Yemoja and a Wheelish. And going by how PBM played this Yemoja last time, I'm not surprised. He hit everything, every three. He was hitting two-man threes under the tower. Sam could pick who he wanted to ult in, who he wanted to pull in. And if PBM continues to set up like he has been, then I don't see this a Wheelish ult being hard to get off. And as Circuit comes through, another target that can be grabbed by that Gravity Surge.
And it feels like, I mean, again, yesterday watching all of the World's Finals of years past, there's a lot of metas where this draft doesn't necessarily stand out. This meta, though, it stands out quite a lot. I mean, Taco, it feels like it has to be a Circuit support, I would guess, right? And that just doesn't feel right for what we've been seeing the last few months.
There's definitely been some rumors about Bestet's viability in terms of her flexibility, but seeing Bestet in the support, I don't know if that's really an experiment the Solar Scarabs would want to opt for when they're already down a game. So, yeah, I'd imagine that the Circuit most likely to be in that support position, but it brings a lot of the same issues that we saw from the Solar Scarabs in Game 1 in that their crowd control presence as far as the outright 5v5 is concerned is definitely seeming a little bit lackluster in comparison to that of the JADE Dragons, and this is only just from the top 3. So if the Solar Scarabs are maybe looking to turn things around here, might be looking to introduce a Guardian to that solo role, especially since Achilles has been taken off the board.
And that's something that I think it was actually Aggro at one point on Twitter in the last couple of weeks had mentioned that he expected Achilles to be one of the top tier picks and bans. We already got to see it picked up in the top 2 and the top 3 there for the Dragons last time, now banned away. At least trying to stifle some of this draft, but the Umoja, Wheelish, Zhang Kui are the exact same. They are going to limit it because now Heimdall's gone as well. And the other bans on the other side for the Dragons were the Charybdis and the Guan Yu, which is a direct shot at Solo Patrol. But it feels, I mean, Hazer at this point as if the Scarabs, again, are letting the draft get away from them a little bit.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty surprised they grabbed that Circuit in the 3rd spot instead of going to that Charybdis, which Baronic's typically really valued in the mid lane. It feels like Circuit wasn't something that would have got banned away, so I guess that Baronic must have a pick he has in mind here, which is not that, as we see Osiris locked in here. That's going to give a little bit of solo side pressure, I guess. We're going to see probably some big fights over towards the solo side here from the Scarab. Scream and Solo going to have to combine.
And it feels weird. I've gotten so used to seeing Osiris in the jungle this year. I mean, how does it fare? Well, I was going to say against their lane matchup, but we don't know his lane matchup as of yet. I guess in conjunction with the rest of this team, it's now another god with a leap that a Wheelish is going to be able to capitalize on. And like, is this something that is worrisome for the Scarabs, or is this a solid pick to help shut down at least some of the healing?
Well, fortunately for Osiris, Lord of the Afterlife,
CC
not gonna really be able to get caught out by that gravity surge. But on the other hand, the Osiris is just very individual pick oriented. That's really everything so far from the Solar Scarabs outside of that sanctified field. But when you think about how Game 1 went and the impact of that laning phase overall, it was the JADE Dragons who took advantage of the duo side pressure. And I have some concerns that that could be the focus here again, because Chiron's still available. I think when you have these comps that have such limited amounts of crowd control, Chiron could be a hunter that really sticks out because training exercise would just be very strong, I think, at negating a lot of that pick potential that the Solar Scarabs seem to be opting for.
And something that we have seen from the Dragons a few times throughout the year. And admittedly, Phase 2 was when I think they were the ones hammering it forward, really causing it. Another thing that is a JADE Dragons very specific pick is this Mulan. And sometimes it is something that I think Sam has fought to pull out into the jungle. Didn't necessarily work out well for him. Taco, you get your Chiron, but Hazer, we get a Fino K Mulan showing up here.
Yeah, Fino, he did show this pick at the play-ins and looked really, really good on it. I think he whipped it out Game 5 up against the Bolts when all the chips were on the table. Fino K went to the Mulan, controlled the lane, won his team the game, or at least was a big part of it. And this Chiron, great shout there by Taco, comes through. I actually think it could have been a good pick for Baronic as well in the mid lane. So it's almost a takeaway from the Scarabs at the same time as being a great pick for Panda Cat.
Now this is something, I guess, Taco, the Osiris matchup up against a Mulan specifically, is that one that is going to go very heavily? I mean, Mulan sometimes can be an absolute bully, and Fino K specifically can be a bully.
I think that one thing that JADE Dragons are doing super well with these solo lane matchups, they're just going for outright stalemates. They're not really giving Solo Patrol the opportunity to be an overall lane bully throughout the laning phase portion. And with that in mind, I think it's going to be all the more difficult for a Bastet or a Circuit to really try and provide any sort of influence to sway the pressure on the solo side of the map, because especially if you base it off of Game 1, JADE Dragons, they'll probably sacrifice Fino K's laning phase experience, because even if you have a 3-level ahead solo laner, when you compare it to having a 4 to 3 level ahead support, hunter, mid laner, jungle, it's just a lot more influential for the overall outcome of the team fight. So Solar Scarabs are really just, again, banking it all on whether or not they can establish some early picks.
We'll have to see if they can even get to that point early on. The Dragons love to run away with games as quickly as possible. Tiamat is the last pick for the Scarabs going towards Baronic. Hazer, this is the most banned god in the SPL this year. It's the second most picked god, only behind Gilgamesh, and yet it's 10th pick. We haven't been seeing it a whole ton. Baronic, in the best of days, sometimes looks, good on it, but she's not been a high priority for a while, and really for good reason.
Yeah, I do think she's fallen off a little bit in the mid lane. She's taken a lot of nerfs over the year, obviously came in very strong and has taken quite a few hits of that nerf hammer. But also, I just think she doesn't provide maybe enough pressure right now in the mid lane for what people are looking for when you're going up against the AMCs, the Ulers, even the Zongs, the Zeuses. They're just going to pressure you out, and I worry again that the Scarabs have gone for a comp where I don't know if they can survive through this early game and get to the point where they can teamfight. I don't know if the Jade Dragons are going to let them.
So, Taco, it feels like the Scarabs have backed themselves into the same corner, or at least a very similar corner. Different draft over, well, with 2 picks there for the Dragons, but the playstyle is still going to be the same. Is it just all on the play on the field for the Scarabs, or is there something else outside of that they really need to figure out?
Well, I also have a hard time trying to overlook the fact that this Gravity Surge, again, just 3 very prime targets ready to go. A lot of already consistent sort of lockdown as well from the Jade Dragons off this Umoja and Zhongqi. Mulan as well, I think, whenever she does finally get a chance to partake in those team fights, I could definitely see FineOK just forcing out ultimates, because that was the main issue that we saw from SOT in Game 1. He was just getting that bat out of hell forced so consistently. He never really had an opportunity to try and partake in the team fight. I feel like the same issue could devolve here essentially for this Osiris. And Tiamat, again, not a whole lot of lane clear early on. A Wheelish Zhongqi, on the other hand, I think a Wheelish makes up for what a little bit of that Zhongqi lacks.
And realistically, last time the Wheelish was picked after all of those picks, so you could be a little forgivable. They've locked in most of these after the Wheelish had showed up. We'll see if the Scarabs have backed themselves into the same corner or if they're going to turn things around here in game number 2.
Solar Scarabs, not a team to back down from the challenge that the Jade Dragons are going to be throwing. Remember the Solar Scarabs for a while, Aggro? We're one of the only teams in the league that could consistently beat this Dragons team somehow. They had the answer all year long here in Season 8, and they've got to find it. You would think, look, this is a best of 5.
Yep.
First to 3 wins it. You are making your job infinitely harder if you're the Solar Scarabs and you lose here in Game 2. Most important game of the set, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're the one who's on my team.
Yeah, of course.
That, right?
Game 1
2.
can't be the most important, Dave,
Right.
because it has the least. It doesn't change the set nearly as much
Right.
as the other
The
ones.
amount that it changes the set is
Right.
what I base that off of.
Yes.
The difference between Dragons being up 2-0
Massive.
and being tied up 1-1, ridiculous. It's a canyon between the 2 options.
Yep.
That being said, or with that being said, the Solar Scarabs need to show up here. Baronic goes back to something a little bit more standard as far as the mid lane goes. He gets the Tiamat. But the Solar Scarabs are sticking with the magical ADC for Stewart. And still a duo lane aggro and still a jungler for Sam for Soccer that you feel like could punish that left side.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Solar Troll's in trouble. No, okay, he's okay. Big heal there from the Warriors Axe proc. Yes, the Scarabs have made some adjustments as they split mid-harpies on this left-hand side. I thought Harry was going to get both. They've made some adjustments, but I don't know if it's enough, Dave. They have more pressure on the right-hand side, which is a good start. But still, I don't know if it's enough, because when you've got this magical hunter, whether it's the Olarun or the Freya,
Right.
you have to do something on the Scarabs to make the Jade Dragons not want to do what they did in Game 1, which is just sit at the purple buff and the red buff and go, cool, these are ours now and there's nothing you can do about it. And the ways that you do that are either drafting enough fight, whether it be on this left-hand side, the right-hand side, or in mid lane, in order to make it so that if they show up, we'll win the fight, which is hard to do whenever you've got the Magical Hunter. That's why the invades work in the first place. Or you have to put enough pressure on the other side of the map to actually say, hey, Sam, you can't keep going left because you'll lose the game if you do.
Right.
And I just don't know that they've done that, even with getting FineOK off that Achilles and onto this Mulan. I like the Osiris a lot more here for Solar Troll. But the big thing that I wanted to see was a different pick here in the mid lane for Baronic, but he picked low pressure instead of high pressure.
Looking towards the late game. Looking towards the early game is Scream, though. Gets the root onto Panicat, who's got no beads. A Riptide perfect from PBM, and the 3v2 will not work out. Solar Scarabs send Scream to left at level 3, and Scream will leave empty-handed.
It looked weird there from Panicat, but I think his pre-beads into dash was incredibly smart, but now Hurrywind's in trouble.
Hurrywind over from mid lane as well. This is a path that Hurrywind chose for himself. Mike here to bail him out with the Riptide yet again, but the Solar Scarabs are relentless. Nice stun from Mike. Slows down inbound, but Scream has got eyes for the Zhongqi, and Hurrywind walking away. Baronic feet forward, gets a knockup, but there will be no kill onto Hurry. There will be no kill onto Mike, and the Solar Scarabs chase him out, but still Still got nothing.
Wow, unbelievable that they both live there, and so does Panda Cat. To get no first blood there is absolutely shocking to me, but it's still not bad for the Solar Scarabs. They got both sets of buff. They got beads from both from Panda Cat and from Heroin. So good aggressive gank early. It does lose that blue buff on the right-hand side there for Solar Troll, but still A-okay.
Inbound with a different look support here. Fenrir last game, Cirquette this game. Be careful. Panda Cat and Mike got some good damage. Blue Zone start for this Chiron. And this is early Season 8, right? With Chiron, Bluestone Pendant for Panda Cat. The ability to pressure in this lane is what the Jade Dragons are looking for here. And so, maybe to your point, Aggro, the fact that the Scarabs have found any sort of pressure on the left, including some buffs and beads from Panda Cat, could be a win for the Solar Scarabs. I want to shine a light on the solo lane for a little bit. Felt like Fine was a relentless force in Game 1 on the Achilles. Mulan, a pick that only a handful of solo laners like going towards here in the SPL. But if Fine can get off to a good start, one level down right now, SOT's held up well on this Osiris, the Mulan can push that lead.
Definitely, and this is the type of pick that can, once it gets a lead, start to get blue buffs all on her own without any sort of concern. I just don't know that, it is a little bit gankable, and I think it's a little bit more gankable than Achilles in my mind. And if you can set this Mulan behind, she starts to feel more useless than most warriors when behind. She doesn't bring that much extra utility, especially outside of the ultimate and the grapple. So, maybe Scream spend some time over here, but that's kind of what the Jade Dragons want. They want the game plan, if it's similar to Game 1, to just get ahead over here on the duo side of the map. And with the way that early skirmish played out, even though they don't get any kills for the Solar Scarabs, it has desynced their buffs, and it means that the Jade Dragons can get their buffs on the left-hand side and then regroup and be ready to invade without having any risk of setting their timers behind. And so that's actually pretty good now for the Jade Dragons. Heroin is going to have beads up. He's going to have ultimate. He's going to be much stronger than Baronic at this point, even with his build having a little bit of flat pen with the Enchanted Spear versus Baronic's Restored Artifact. Surprised that Sam's going to this right-hand side. Really expected him to go left and set up for his buff.
Fine has got eyes for SOT, who has taken a whole heap of damage. Ultimate out from Fino. SOT answers in kind. Scream with the jump away. Sam for Soccer. Fishing comes up empty-handed this time. That means some pressure for the Jade Dragons on left. They'll get both Oracles and the Greater Scorpion, and the Jade Dragons will do so on right as well. So calculated aggression. One ultimate used by the Dragons. And SOT and Scream will have to answer with their own on right.
Yeah, but it's not, it's these neutral objectives that, yes, we can assume they'll be getting those with this style of composition, and it's still certainly good to be getting these neutral objectives, but no buffs on the left-hand side have gone down.
At least be getting those, right?
Right, and Stewart is a little bit ahead of Panda Cat because that early skirmish, as expected, but things are much better for the Solar Scarabs at this point. Stewart's already seen more purple buffs than he saw through 6 minutes last game, and maybe through like 12 minutes. Last game because he lost so many in a row. So, I think that Scarab should be very happy with where they are in this game right now.
Hurrywin played my eyes kind of go towards him and his build, Hurrywin, because it was, if I remember correctly, Divine Ruin into Breastplate of Valor last game. I think Hurrywin realized that he was going to be the target of a lot of that isolation style composition that the Solar Scarabs were running. Could still be a Breastplate at some point for Hurry. But he kind of laughed at us in the hallway on his way out from the player booth, like, man, they were trying to kill me so much. Like, they realized what his job was, right? And that's not uncommon for a Zhang Kui. So the Jade Dragons going back to that here for Hurrywin obviously found some comfort in his role for the Dragons in Game 1, and could be similar here, Aggro. Still a Bastet. Cirquette, bit of a different look at an isolation for inbound there. Hurrywin will have his hands full.
Yeah, I mean, classic Hurry voice. They want to kill me so
Slight
bad.
Smirk,
yeah,
right?
Of course. just absolutely love it. But hey, I mean, that's okay on Zhang Kui. You want to be the one getting killed on Zhang Kui. Your job is not have a pretty KDA on Zhang or Zeus or anything like that. Your job is to do effective damage in the team fight. And Hurry was getting it off, on that mid-Phoenix, the last play of the game, where he gets pulled in. He still gets his ultimate off, and everyone was like half HP that was around him. So he did his job, and I expect it to be more of the same here this game.
Fine was able to poke out SOT just a bit as the Mulan continues to wind up over on the right side of the map.
I will say, though, that even if these same scenarios happen where Hurry is pulled into the team. If Solar Patrol is there, that Judgment Tether is going to make a huge difference because that's percent damage reduction for anyone who's tethered by it. So if anyone is, Zhonghui is going to be hitting everybody, but just dealing 15% less damage or whatever it is off that Judgment Tether whenever he maxes it is actually going to make a big difference. I like Osiris and DeJong for that reason specifically.
Jade Dragons are going to spool up some scaling on the left side of the map as well. It's Transcendent start for Panda Cat once that gets stacked up. Hit a good power spike here on this Chiron. And so, maybe Aggro, if you're considering the trend of the way that Game 1 went and the pacing so far of Game 2, at this point in Game 1, Jade Dragons were a few thousand gold in the lead. The Scarabs have found some return picks. Both teams okay to just take a deep breath at this point. 700 gold is all the Jade Dragons have to show for it. You spread that out over the team. Talking about negligible gold amounts, and that is why the Solar Scarabs still feeling okay to engage it. As Sam for Soccer ulted by inbound. Here comes Sot from the solo lane. First blood avoided.
Ooh.
Sam for Soccer will not die. PBM has got the last bit of healing, but you know who will die? It's Scream in the mid lane, left alone, isolated, and deleted by Hurrywin.
Love that play there by the Jade Dragons. They know that they can't help Sam no matter what. So Sam, good luck. We'll see if we see you, but otherwise, we're just going to be winning the team fight in front of us, and they dominate that team fight in front of them because of Yamoja Zhonghui. This combination just means that they've got AoE damage, they've got AoE healing, they've got AoE CC, they prevent you from walking where you want to walk. It's just everything you could ever want in a multi-man team fight scenario. And the Jade Dragons understand that Sam's on his own, he makes some good jukes, he lives. That feels good for us, but we're going to make sure that we at least get something on the back end.
Sam for Soccer, the ability to engage cannot be understated. The ability to disengage, maybe a tool that he has in his belt as well. The last bit of tick damage, I was for sure was going to take him down here. 33 HP in a dream is all Sam for Soccer had. Going to need all of his HP pool to survive this one. Surely he doesn't get out alive this time. Solar Scarabs answer back, and it's Scream now on the board. Same thing that we saw in Game 1 with Scream answering back, but it could look better for the Solar Scarabs this time. Baronic from the mid lane gets the Tiamat going.
Inbound might be getting caught, but it's Serket, man. That no problem for him in order to use that mobility. A clean 2 for 0 for the Solar Scarabs. And just a little bit too much of an overstay there from Sam and FinoK.
This is what you needed to see if you're the Solar Scarabs, is an answer back to the early pressure that the Jade Dragons were throwing, especially from Game 1 to Game 2. The ability to stall the momentum after a knockdown, drag-out win like the Dragons had in Game 1. Show up, show some face in Game 2, and even things back up, even take a tiny little gold lead. Is the Solar Scarabs feeling comfortable? Inbound, not so much, though. He'll take a chunk of damage underneath the Tier 1.
And look at what Solar Troll has done. He just wiped the entire right side of the map from Sam for Soccer. He took his speed, he took his backs, both sets, and he took the blue. And is now, not only is that great to set Sam behind, but that's a ton of farm for SOT to be able to grab. And it's good for him because he's now 2 levels up on FinoK, but it's also good for Scream because Scream gets to now solo all of his right side jungle and doesn't have to share any of that with anybody else. And it's going to set him ahead, even more so than just Sam being set behind. So that invade there from Sot was really, really good.
You think Stewart's happy with the way that this early game has gone?
Oh, my goodness.
I can sit back and I can breathe. I can be even in levels with Panda Cat.
He's top net worth.
Top net worth in the game on his team. Only 100 gold or so behind Hurrywin. You think Stu is happy?
And that's why I'm
Game 2
so surprised that Sam has not come to this left side a single time. You know, the first blue buff invade, you know, they're chasing us out. We got a little bit caught. Sure, that makes sense. Let's get something. But the next one, when they had an opportunity, when their buffs were desynced, instead they go to the right side of the map. And I know that you want to, the Mulan is strong. It's cool to fight around her, but remembering the primary game plan, I think, is important. And clearly, their primary game plan is different than what I expected. But I think that the first Game 1 looked pretty good to me.
Right.
I would have run that back.
Yeah, to double down, especially when the power curve for the Solar Scarabs on the left side potentially looked similar. FinoK, 2 levels down on the Mulan. You're not picking a Mulan to be 2 levels down outside of the laning phase, at least even is what you would hope. And so you'll need some scaling time for Fino, but SOT just wailing away on Mulan right now. And so the Osiris becomes a very important threat for the Jade Dragons to identify. Scream, why not? I'll walk into your speed buff, take it away. Sam for Soccer once again loses a bit of his right side jungle. Could we see the 1v1? Scream wants it. Sam for soccer mounts up. Hello, solo kill. Scream gets it done, and the Bastet starting to wind up.
This is worst case scenario now for the Jade Dragons because they just don't have any pressure anywhere. How is the Tiamat Bastet comp winning this hard in the mid game? They just took bad fights around the wrong objectives, and the Solar Scarabs have punished them perfectly.
Gold Fury for the Solar Scarabs. This would expand on their lead. Polar Bear Mike will not make it easy. Riptide out, but Inbound's got something else in mind. Sanctified Field out. Polar Bear Mike jumped on. Inbound grabs the kill. It's a River's Rebuke that is up at Hurrywind. He's squishier this time than he was in game 1, and another kill rolls over to the Solar Scarabs 13 minutes in, and they got 4 extra kills.
And they're going to be able to grab some more gold potentially. Panda Cat is here, and Sam is on the way. This is critical for the Solar Scarabs to secure, and they should be able to get it even with the Oracle Vision there for the Jade Dragons.
Yeah, Panda Cat without ult, no real steal chance there. Lots of low health bars. A weaker mental, and that's me, by the way, would be going in there trying to find some of those kills, but Panda Cat realizing that's a fruitless effort, and so he'll gallop away. Solar Scarabs, 2,000 gold in the lead, almost exactly. You love to see that. You love any amount of gold lead that you're able to get. Tower shrinks that up a little bit, but far from insurmountable for the Jade Dragons.
Yeah, I mean, even with how this game, if you would have taken away the scoreboard on top and just asked me how much gold down were the Jade Dragons, I would have said they'd probably be down like 4K.
I would have said 4
at this point, but they're only down 1,500. Experience probably going to be worse. You know, there's 5 levels of difference total on the right side of the map here for the Solar Scarabs. Yeah, 6,000 experience looks about right to me, but still okay.
A lot of it here in the solo lane. 3-level lead for SOT. Final K, he will be locked in place. Shouldn't be much of a chance for an escape here. It's just a matter of who gets it. Although the ultimate and the sustain keeps him where he's at. SOT from range knocks down Fino. And the Osiris continues to wind up here, aggro. And it has been a steady even to 1-level lead for SOT. Builds up to 3 now. As the right side of the map, which is where the Dragons had put emphasis, hasn't had much to show for it.
And at least if they were putting pressure on the left-hand side, they'd have something to show even though it isn't going their way over here on right. You know, Stewart would be behind, maybe Panda Cat would be really ahead, you know, something to lean on. But now when you look at how this game state plays out for the Jade Dragons, what's their win condition? Now it's trying to push it late when you've got a Willish Mulan as your right side.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel great to me.
No, it doesn't.
You know, you have to really lean on your team fight, but they've got an Ola run. And, you know, we kept saying we're waiting for this Freya to unlock. We're waiting for this Freya to farm up. And Freya becomes great in the later stages of the game, but she's not a team fighter. Even then, she just kills whoever's in front of her. You know, she's just going to machine gun everyone down. Ola run team fights you. You know, he's got this ultimate that is going to do more than River's Rebuke or, you know, recall demons or anything like that that the Jade Dragons are going to have. And also the Jade Dragons don't have great answers to killing this Ola run. You know, normally we see these long duration CC immune ultimates to take them down. They don't really have that. I think they're relying on Panda snipes to get the job done, along with this dive in from Sam or from Fino K. They're trying to just 2-man it that way, but that requires a lot of things to be going right, and also Panda to hit a sped up Ola run, which is not a guarantee.
Yeah, the only win for the Jade Dragons right now is that Panda Cat is even with Stewart. I'm not sure you even consider that a win, given the scaling of the Ola run.
Left side buff invades.
Yeah, 16 minutes in, we get a left side buff invade from the Jade Dragons. That's going to open up the Pyromancer on right for the Solar Scarabs. What was about 3,000 gold in the lead, hover right around, maybe the same thing, 3.5K or so, as the Jade Dragons able to answer back with a tower on the left side. That's at least a silver lining here, aggro, is the left and right tier 1s for the Solar Scarabs have been knocked down by the Jade Dragons. Solar Scarabs have been in the jungle, taking away a lot of those objectives, so at least the gold shrinks up a bit, though that's gold that's already been secured by the Jade Dragons. Solar Scarabs, they've got only one less tier 1, and so they'll be able to grab that gold, you would assume, back for themselves here with one concerted push.
Yeah, Fino K knows that he's in trouble here, so he's going to have to give up this blue buff. No way that he ends up fighting the level 17 Osiris. And Solar Patrol has just played this game so well. I mean, he missed that first ultimate and dropped the first blood onto Sam, and I was a little worried.
You wondered, right?
Yeah, I did wonder about the mental state and how he was going to stay locked in. He really has.
Hurrywind taunted in by Inbound. He uses the beads.
Scream.
Zhang Kui, I was going to say, should be fine.
He don't miss.
Scream has got something else in mind. Pre-beads as he jumps in. Hurrywind is an afterthought for Scream, who is on a killing spree. Second time's a charm, but Panda Cat has rotated over from the duo lane, and he'll return one.
Solar Patrol's here, but this tower healthy enough to stop the initiation there from Solar Patrol, and it ends up being a 1-for-1, and you take those from this position. They needed something for the Jade Dragons, but this idea that, all right, I'm going to beads the guaranteed CC, and I'll simply juke Scream's ultimate. You know, everyone's saying this ultimate's so hard to hit. It's
That's
so hard to
almost
hit.
guaranteed, though.
And it is hard to hit. You know, I'm out there missing them all the time. Not Scream, though.
No.
I don't think he's missed a single one. He has been unbelievable on this Bastet, and that has been very, very punishing. A key part of this composition is making sure that Huntress of Bast ends up landing on the back end. And they go, don't miss.
Yeah, which one's the guaranteed CC? I'm not sure.
It's Scream's ult.
It might be Scream's ult with the way that he's playing
But
right
now
now.
we've cursed him, and so
Alright, cursed
there
him,
it goes.
right.
But then
Well,
we just uncursed him by talking about how we cursed him, so we'll have to see what
Well,
happens.
everyone who's got the bingo card for the weekend
True.
will be happy with that. Caster
If
curse is
Scream
one of
misses
them.
his next ult, that's officially a caster curse.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, that's such a high bar to set. He doesn't miss any, and that's not a caster's curse.
No, yeah. If he lands the next two and then misses a third one,
Right.
you know, that's not a caster
But it's
curse.
the absolute
It's
next
the
one.
next one has
Got
to
it.
miss. Yeah,
We'll see.
for sure.
Sorry, Scream. We've doomed you and the rest of the Solar Scarabs, at least in the next fight. Jade Dragons have stuck around in this game, though. The gold lead hasn't gotten worse as far as 2,000 to 3,000 hovered right in that department. Will the Dragons feel comfortable enough to show up for the Primal Fury? The answer looks like yes.
Yeah.
As the Jade Dragons is 5 rotate over to the left side of the map. It is Final K engaged on by Inbound, who has been unstoppable. Hurrywind sent right back in. Ultimate hits from Scream this time, but Final K not brought fully back in as Inbound will have to disengage.
But her, when using the ultimate, is maybe even bigger than Scream using his. So that is a huge cooldown to lose, and we've been talking about the Jade Dragons team fight being their strength. Well, Recall Demons is a big part of that team fight strength, and it was really a good play from Final K. He ate the ultimate there from Scream so that Hurry didn't get pulled, but that's why Hurry went ulted. He thought he was going to be pulled in.
Scream blinked out. This is a defensive usage of the Relic to keep himself out of harm's way of the Jade Dragons, who were looming. As SOT at level 19, that is a 4-level lead over Final K. The Osiris, the raid boss that's found its way into the back line, the front line of the Jade Dragons, all of it seems to be forfeit here. Wherever SOT looks, that's what he's got. Primal Fury low, Polar Bear Mike riptides through. The
reset.
Fury is dropped and reset by the Solar Scarabs as SOT controls the left side. Sanctified Field is out,
Huge.
and it is huge. The Solar Scarabs have found the perfect engage. SOT, the chainsaw revving up as Final K jumped on and chopped down. SOT has got 2. The Jade Dragons, 3 left alive. Scream hits another. Here comes the Osiris. Triple kill for Sot.
Oh, man.
Scream takes the 4th away. The Scarabs will not be denied. Give him the quad, baby. Set him up. Knock him down. Sot's got 4.
Unbelievable, man. Solar Troll just was unstoppable in that fight. He just planted himself in the Jade Dragons backline and said, do something about it. And they said, no, thank you. We will not, because we can't even if we want to. Solar Troll just created so much space. Stewart's Sanctified Field was absolutely perfect. Locked in 2 members that just didn't have that team fight capability anymore. As soon as they get slowed down by that Sanctified Field, Scream, of course, does not miss, as we've already covered. And the rest of the Solar Scarabs are just right on time. Beautiful team fighting there from the Solar Scarabs, but someone's got to talk to someone. Who was it that sold Sot's Penta? Because that was a pentakill, man. He had that locked up.
It was. I was
There
for sure.
no
I was
shot.
winding up.
I
was
know.
getting ready to go. He almost got it anyway. As if
Look at this.
This is a solo laner's just dream, right? If you're a solo lane player, just enjoy what you're about to see.
Yeah, I mean, what is anyone supposed to do? Especially with Panda's build that's mace heavy, he could be auto-attacking Solar Patrol for the next 15 seconds, and I don't think he would kill him. He is that far ahead.
It's right.
And Panda Cat just can't do it. I mean, the tether on Panda
Scream
Cat's
steals
ultimate.
that one.
Oh,
No, it's the dot.
Oh, brutal.
No.
Absolutely brutal. That should have
Devastating.
been a world's penta there for Solar Patrol. No doubt about it. He would have earned it. I mean, even the tether usage on Panda Cat whenever he goes to ult, meaning that ult won't do as much damage. I mean,
Right.
just perfect.
Hasn't Sot, the addition of Scream to this team clearly changed a lot, but hasn't SOT all year long proven that mechanically, decision-making wise, one of the best solo laners that we've got here in the SPL? And so while Scream has driven a lot of the early game pressure and the build-up that the Scarabs have, Sod has been consistent for this team.
When Sod is on, he looks like the best solo laner in the world. It's just a matter of he's not always on, and that decision-making at times can be very good, and other times it is game-losing. And that's been the problem for him this season and really his whole career.
Panda Cat's got to use the B tier and Centaurus, but inbound.
And Aegis.
Have eyes for him. Aegis down as well. Ultimate, all the defensive utilities gone for the Jade Dragons Hunter, as 5 members of the Scarabs still have Fire Giant buff. They've got 2.5 minutes to work with it. Mid lane Tier 1 and Tier 2 are gone. You got Tiamat minions pushing down there as well. You're going to see a big gold spike here. 10,000 is where the Solar Scarabs stand. And Aggro, I haven't seen anything from the Jade Dragons that has shown me much confidence in their ability to defend any of these Phoenixes. Feels like the Scarabs playing with house money.
I mean, there's just Game 1 was really dominant from the Jade Dragons. Game 2 was equally dominant from the Solar Scarabs. And this has kind of been the story for the Jade Dragons this year, is that someone's getting crushed in their games. It's just them or their opposition, and you don't really know which one. In this game, I mean, just the decision-making to continue to go right. Solar Troll just plays so well. Scream has been on point, and Stewart just got a completely free laning phase on Olarun, which can't happen. We've seen what Stu can do when he's given these free laning phases, and he's doing it to him right now. He's bottom of the player damage charts, and it doesn't even matter because he hasn't had to do any player damage. It's just lay down the sanctified field and say, run please, because otherwise we're going to win the team fight.
Right, Stu didn't get much damage or any of the kills in that last fight, but the 3-4 person sanctified field to start it off.
That'll do it.
Was all the Solar Scarabs needed, and SOT was able to walk in and deal the last bit of damage. Mostly all the damage. Scream was there as well for the Solar Scarabs. So I don't think you call this a slow play just yet. You've knocked down 3 or 4 towers so far for the Solar Scarabs. 1 more standing on the map. Really just setting the stage for the next push, the next Fire Giant that you're able to grab. Jade Dragons, maybe some hope here for some range steal. I mean, it's maybe Panda Cat, PBM could walk in, but with the state of everything, I don't know if you're feeling comfortable stepping up.
I mean, normally I would say I don't like the Scarabs playing so slowly. I would have liked to see them go for a Phoenix because as strong as Solar Troll is, he's not getting that much stronger. You know, he's only got his last item to finish. He's already upgraded his starter. And eventually, him standing in the midst of 5 will get him killed. Now, he'll still do utility, all that kind of good stuff. But with I don't like the build path here for Hurwind and for Sam. They're going defense. They need to actually threaten this Osiris.
Sanctified field down. This time doesn't catch out onto many, but Final K has been brought right back to the Solar Scarabs. Your front line is melting, Jade Dragons. It is time to wake up, but instead PBM goes to bed. Hurwind chased down on the right by the Solar Scarabs. We are playing quickly. All of a sudden, Veronica's got 2. Looking for a 3rd back into the fountain, but Hurwind will sustain back up. We are not looking for the end. We're looking for the right side bird.
Oh, they've got it for sure. That front line, as you mentioned, just absolutely decimated. But Fire Giant has now fallen off of the Solar Scarabs, which means they aren't getting any sort of sustain. They don't have healing besides this little Olarun 3, which is nice, but not enough to sustain you through another Phoenix Siege. So a good call here from the Solar Scarabs. Get the Phoenix back up. I think they should just reset, go to Fire Giant, because you like your odds on a firefight, no doubt.
Silver lining for the Dragons has got to be that it's your right side Phoenix that goes down.
Yep.
You're able to keep your left side and your mid lane Phoenixes alive. That gives you the ability, should you want to, in the next 15 seconds, step up towards the Fire Giant where the Solar Scarabs will be. But think about how the Solar Scarabs responded to the FGs in Game 1 when down at a similar deficit. There was no response. You were fighting in your base the entire end of the game.
Yep.
And so we're already in that territory where the Dragons and their shot callers have to decide, are we more likely to fight and win around the Fire Giant, steal it away, extend this game out? Or are we more likely to defend under the Phoenix, under our Titan?
I mean, what's your recourse when Stewart just drops Sanctified Field like he did? You know, what's the game plan then? I'm not sure.
Okay, well, here's your answer.
Well, it's not. Yeah, it's what do you do when he does it on fire? You at least have a little bit more room to navigate, but they just don't have relics. They can't possibly step up in that situation.
Now, here's what's important as Final K dies. That's pretty important alone. I was actually about to make that point about. I was about to make that point about Inbound. There are times where Inbound is overextended and he gets picked in a moment like that, and the Scarabs are limited in their ability to push. It's the exact opposite now. Now it's Final K. Is Inbound mobile enough on this Circuit to avoid the solo kill? Final K not. Now you're fighting without your primary tank. You need Final K in this engagement. And the Jade Dragons back up. They backpedal beneath their Titan. No Phoenix defense to be had.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't see it happening on this left side Phoenix either. So now it's on our Titan, and
Can you
Stewart
delay
still has
15
sanctified
seconds?
field.
I don't even know if you can delay 15 seconds
Maybe
here,
not.
Aggro. Fine OK is up in 10. And I think you're going to be at a 4v5 on defense no matter how much time you delay. 5 seconds on Fine OK. We might be less than that in the game. The Solar Scarabs have eyes for game 3. Stewart has taken a chunk of damage here as Panda Cat makes his way back into the fountain. Baronic deletes Polar Bear Mike as the Scarabs as 5 group up on the Titan. There will not be a 2-0 for the Jade Dragons. The Solar Scarabs will tie us up and they will send us on to a game 3.
An emphatic game 2 from the Solar Scarabs, right on time, exactly what they needed. And that type of game, I think, is demoralizing for the Jade Dragons. Even more so than game 1, you know, just coming off of this game 1 win, you're feeling good, and then nothing goes right for you. You're up against a player in this Osiris that just looks completely unstoppable. Scream gets this Bastet again and looks that good. I'm more worried about the Dragons' mental now than I was about the Scarabs' mental after game 1.
Right.
Because I think that win was so drastic. The good news is, if you're the Dragons, that I think if they just would have stuck to the game plan, they probably would have been fine. So as long as Kabam goes in there and sets the record straight a little bit, I think they could be okay.
Yeah, Kabam, man with all the plans. He'll get the Jade Dragons back on track. Luckily now, got a little breathing room. Game 3, not all important. Not a knockout game just yet. Jade Dragons, Solar Scarabs, we are tied at 1. Game 3, the tiebreaker, coming up next.
Benji is around the back. Good Rivers review from inbound. Keeps the back line out of this fight. Aurora's got the Scarabs blessing onto himself. Life code spin. Ducks back down. It's a big engage from SOT. Over on the Oracles. SOT going massive.
Money world. Money world. Money world.
We've got ourselves a tied set after game number 2. 1-1. The Scarabs look impeccable, bringing that game back and the set back into their favor. Of course, if you want to look impeccable, you can go to shop.smiteproleague.com and rock a bunch of the merch. Or if you specifically want some limited time only championship edition version of all of the jerseys for every single team in the black and gold, you can go to hrz.io/SWC merch in all caps, and of course pick all of that up, as well as the leggings and the mouse pads. Represent the league, represent your teams, and of course get a nice mouse pad on top of all of that. But there's plenty of that and more for every single team and the league itself at shop.smiteproleague.com. So go pick up your favorite merchandise and rock it throughout the rest of the year, because we know at least that all these teams' names are going to be the same next year. It's not the same as it used to be. You can't buy a cognitive jersey like I have that hat. I have an NRG jersey, and they don't mean anything to me anymore. Well, there's nostalgia, but that's about it. Otherwise, you can rock the Dragons if you want them to come back. You can rock the Scarabs if you're feeling confident after that one. And Taco, they should be feeling a little confident after that one. They absolutely rocked the Dragons world.
That really could not have gone any better for the Scarabs, but I do have to give a large amount of credit towards the JADE Dragons.
Yeah.
You draft for the duo side pressure, and then you play solo and just right into the hands of the Solar Scarabs there, man. I mean, Scream, SOT, definitely shout outs to them. Huge taking advantage of, or they definitely took advantage of the Dragons for a little bit of that oversight.
And Hazer, I mean, it was kind of mentioned, and Taco touched on it, but like, you've got a great jungle and solo performance there from the Scarabs, and then Stewart didn't get touched, and he was happy about it.
Yeah, he got to do exactly what he wanted to do. He got some big Ullr ults as the game went on, chilled out, farmed up. He'd love to do that every single game if he can. Inbound as well, I thought.
Yeah.
I was surprised by the Circuit pick. Top 3, they grabbed that, but I thought he had a fantastic performance on that.
It didn't feel like maybe it should have done as well as it did, but it did, and that's all they have to show for it. A really, really good performance. Scream, the only player who died on the Scarabs throughout that entire game, but he only did it twice, so it's not like it's saying that much for them. A huge performance from him, to the point where, I mean, all of his ults were connecting. You get to see it here once again. Taco, it just felt like this Bastet goes hand in hand with him so well.
It was just snowball nation here for the Solar Scarabs. Once they got control of the lead, once they had their burst pressure online, it was practically impossible for the JADE Dragons to really look to respond. Their team fight, if they'd been on level footing, might have been a little bit more interesting. At least it definitely would have had some sort of a counter-class potential against Solar Troll and Osiris, but Solar Troll, he was level 19. Everybody else in the map was like 14, 15. He's just dominating every single one of those team fights. It was really just an impressive performance out of him and Scream.
And, you know, I was going to give Scream some trouble for this, because that absolutely should have been a pentakill for Solar Troll, but it was tick damage. That wasn't like an active choice for him. That was definitely damage left over. It was a bleed. Either way, it's still a quadra kill. Man, I was so rooting for a second penta this year. We just don't get enough of them.
Yeah, the World Championship especially. Is it just Arkle who's picked one up?
Just Arkle. Like, so I think Andenster got one in like a placements or like a build up to Worlds, but just Arkle with one actually at Worlds. Would have been very, very, actually just nuts for Solar Troll to put his name on that list. Something intense for them. Again, A lot of goose eggs in the death column there for the Scarabs, and a lot of kills for Baronic, Scream, and of course Solar Troll. 5-0-11, 7-0-11. And this Tiamat Taco, I wasn't sure how I felt about it. I'm absolutely happy to see Baronic go back to it.
The primary thing to note again is really just the fact that Scream and Solar Troll, they were all about the challenge there from Fino K and Sam for Soccer. And the moment that the Jade Dragons opted to try and play through that solo side of the map into an Osiris Bastet of all things, it's just never really going to bode well for the team that has an Awelish. Just, I think, a directly more favorable 2v2 matchup there for the Scarabs.
And if they can take it, they're going to be more than happy with it. 18,000, almost 20,000 damage, pretty much 5k above everybody there on the Dragons. Of course, you can show us how you're watching at home, tagging us at SmitePro on Twitter and using hashtag SWC at home. Of course, Enzo here is very invested in this, loving the Jade versus Solar game. You got this, Dragons. Unfortunately, I don't know how Enzo's going to be happy about that. Give him a treat. He'll be fine. He'll stick around. You can also watch like my girls are watching at home here, my two dogs. And you can see Bellini is very interested in just pets. Lala, very invested in the Bastet pick. And that has continued coming through. Loves chasing cats. And I'm sure that's going to keep going here. And honestly, at this point, Hazer, unless something drastic changes, I'm not sure Scream needs to shy away from it. He seems to love this.
No, yeah, I think he should be. I think it should be the Dragons who are thinking about this Bastet pick now, considering whether to take it away. 2 good games on it. Scream just doesn't seem to miss with that ult. That ult, believe it or not, is hard to hit. It's not that easy, that Bastet ult to hit, and he is slamming it every single time. I don't think he missed it a single time in that game that I spotted anyway.
Well, Sam seems to be very comfortable. Again, it's only one game, right, where things get out of hand. But Taco, this is where things really do change up. I mean, if you look at the Scarabs' history just this year, their game 1s are typically very, very bad, and then their game 2s are where they start to right the ship. Is this something that they could ride on into a 4 game, or do you think the Dragons are not necessarily knocked out yet?
Well, you kind of got to view it as like a best of 3 essentially now between these two teams. And if anything, definitely feel as though that game 2 momentum swing is still leaning more in the Scarabs' favor as opposed to the Dragons. Because again, if you look at things on paper, I'd still argue that the Dragons had the better draft. It's just the fact of how they chose to execute it that really got the better of them. So honestly, I'm pretty curious to see whether or not the Jade Dragons, how many adjustments that they're planning on actually opting for.
Well, the Dragons, once again, are going to be first pick here. They're keeping this column, and you were kind of surprised last time, Taco, that the Scarabs had opted to remain second pick. And the Dragons seem to be just fine continuing to keep them over there. Umoja has been the go-to for the Dragons. Hazer, do you see them changing anything up, I guess, if the bans stay the same?
I think the Dragons will probably stick with this Umoja if they can get it. What I would like to see is they change up their bans a little bit. Maybe get rid of this Bastet. Maybe don't allow that Ul run to go through as maybe the changes I would be looking at if I were on their team. Scarabs, I think you're looking to stick with the same style, the same bans, the same comp that you picked in the last game.
Well, Nike has been the first ban for the Dragons every game so far, but now she is devoid of this list. It's still the Odin and the Izanami. They've got a third ban to mess around with. The other side, still the Hell, still the Mercury. Last time this was an Amus and Cobb ban where the Scarabs have it. The Dragons seem to be a little more deep in contemplation. I mean, Taco, is it Bastet? Is it Olaran? Because that was definitely one that he didn't have any troubles that game, but they weren't really playing on that side of the map.
They weren't playing through that duo side at all in game 2, and letting the Ola run through, though, is still a pretty heavy risk there for the Dragons, because we saw the benefit from Stuart as soon as he was able to join the team fights, having been completely uncontested there in that duo side matchup. Sanctified Field just covers so much of the objective play, you're really not left with many outs here, so even when you have team fights that can be split through that River's Rebuke of the Emotion, we saw some great ults from Polar Bear Mike, some that came a little bit later than what might have been anticipated, but at the end of the day, it just didn't really seem to make that much of an impact when compared to the Sanctified Field's impact.
And we saw that. It was actually at the end the one that stood out maybe the most to me, because it was a nice River's Rebuke from Mike, anticipating a Sanctified Field. Stuart just held on to it, and it's one of the best things that you can do in a game sometimes is not use your ult. And then, of course, had it for the perfect end for them. They get rid of that Ola run this time around, and they're going to make things a little harder for the Scarabs. Hunter, last time, 2 times ago, I should say, when he didn't have the Ola run, goes for the Freya. I don't know that we're going to be seeing that. The Freya Hazer didn't necessarily stand out to me. Hachiman's still a big pick. Like, a lot of Hunters are still important now.
Yeah, and we see a big takeaway here from the Dragons. They've grabbed the Bastet. They're not worried about Stuart's pick right now. They're worried about Scream. And they take away
That's
that Bastet.
a good call. Be worried about Scream.
Yeah, I'm always worried about Scream.
Although, and again, we had talked about this, and you had mentioned it specifically. Naja's not at all anything that I think we should give a lot of time to, but like Naja Kali as well. A lot of things that Scream hasn't played so far today, but just because the Bastette's available, do you think that that's an easy like secondary go-to for him?
I think the Neja might have a pretty decent matchup into Bastet. I think Kali might struggle a little bit, those dots coming through from the Bastet, although she does have the root immunity on the ult, so maybe that could be useful for dealing with that 3. But I think Bastet wins a lot of 1v1s just by body blocking with the cat that comes out with that 3, which could make life a little bit more difficult for Kali.
And Taco, how do you feel about the Bastet for Sam? Because the Wheelish was definitely, at least in Game 1, it was a good counter pick. In Game 2, it felt like it was very early.
It was incredibly early. I think that the JADE Dragons put a little bit more emphasis onto the Wheelish in Game 2, just kind of to gauge whether or not it would be another success pick for them. But seeing the Solar Scarabs immediately prioritize their front line is certainly a 180 compared to the past 2 games where we've been seeing that front line come in those 4th, 5th pick slots. But knowing that they have the Bastet online, I think Solar Scarabs are just looking to try and split this Bastet's potential as much as possible by just looking for those separating forces throughout the team fight.
I always feel bad when I do this, but every time the Scarabs lock in the emoji, I have to. It's 3 wins total for them this year. This will be the 18th game that is played, so that is not a lot of wins that you want under your belt. Granted, all those wins are way more recently than you would expect. And Hazer, you also get this Osiris, which we just saw have just lights out performance. It feels like this is going to be a good front line, at least theoretically, for the Scarabs.
Yeah, Solar Troll put on a show with that Osiris in the last game. I mean, he deserved a pentakill. He came over to that fight prior to getting a quadra kill. He was 4 levels ahead. Yeah. He was absolutely crushing it. So not surprised to see him go back to that one. Bobby Moja, always a concern. Has he been putting in the reps? We'll see.
Yeah, that's the true key, right? They've had 3 weeks since the last time we got to see him. Granted, maybe taking a week off for holidays, but then 2 weeks of just nothing but grinding to try and figure things out from there. Well, we'll have to see if the Scarabs can stand up to what we've seen out of it. The top-tier emojis that we've seen inbound has matched in those wins. It's just whether or not we get that Fafnir and Amuz and Cobb locked in for the Dragons. This feels, Taco, like a very good pickup for them.
Could be a ton of pressure from the duo side if that's going to be an Amuz and Cobb intended for Panicat. There is some possibility that it could wind up in the mid lane, although with that Erlong being locked in, Erlong, Yamoja, Osiris, pretty threatening trio to run at an Amuz and Cobb in the mid lane. So would definitely probably prefer to see that AMC in the likes of Panicat's hands. And with the Fafnir being on board, there's also a really strong possibility that JADE Dragons could actually opt for a double hunter style of play here.
That's something, yeah, that we saw a lot actually out of the Oni Warriors during the placements. They were playing that a ton against the Scarabs. And it got to the point where, if I remember correctly, Scarabs just had to start banning Fafnir to stop it from happening. The Amuz and Cobb was very, very popular in mid. They do take a shot towards Pandacat, so kind of assuming that that might end up going towards Hurrywin because they get rid of the Heimdall. Now they get rid of the Morrigan, which is going to be something a little more standard fare for Hurry. The Freya on the other side, so a shot immediately at Stuart alongside the Tiamat. And this is where things open up. I mean, you know, we've seen a lot out of Baronic, but it feels like a little bit of that is going to get stifled. But Charybdis is something that has been big for them. And right now, Hazer, it's still open.
Yeah, I would like to see the Charybdis. I think definitely a strong pick, especially in Baronic's hands. I think he's probably the best Charybdis we've seen in the league. I wonder if we're going to see the Dragons here go towards one of these double hunter, 4 physical, single Fafnir comps that we've seen kind of come into vogue in the last event. It does look like it's primed for that, but Medusa is the pick. Is that a mid lane Medusa? Is that a hunter Medusa? I'm not sure.
And that's the fun of it, right? Locked in exactly where it is. It leaves it very ambiguous because of what we've seen. Although recently, Taco, Medusa had skyrocketed, and we actually expected to see her a lot more during placements than we did because they finally moved that anti-heal onto something where you can apply it a lot easier. Your lacerate goes through the minions and damages them. It feels like she has a place in the meta, but hasn't really become that top tier that we expected.
Medusa's primary issue will always be the fact that in a laning phase, she feels phenomenal. It is very difficult to try and actually bully or outpressure the Medusa because she has super consistent clear. She has a lot of aggro that she can bring to the table as well, levels 1 through 5. And seeing this Neath now for the JADE Dragons, they're looking to still try and play around their control. Definitely some consistent beads burn application. That's going to make things a little bit easier there for Sam on that Bastet to look for an ideal isolation pick. But going back to that Medusa discussion, it's largely just the fact that her clear is fantastic. But in a team fight, if you get 2 people even to just box in that Medusa, she's got nowhere left to run. So positioning will certainly be key here, especially if that's Stuart on the Medusa.
Well, right now they're hovering a Morgan Le Fay, a very interesting pickup. When we saw Morgan's release almost immediately for the next few weeks, Hazer, like locked in, love to be seen, love to be played. Hasn't seen a whole ton since then. Locked in for the first time here at SWC. How do you feel about this going in mid?
It's definitely an interesting one there. It doesn't feel like the safest pick here in mid for Boronic. Up against the Neath, up against the Nike, up against even this Bastet. I don't know how he's going to manage this one. He's going to have to put on an absolute show. We've seen Paul do it. But Paul is Paul. Can Boronic do the same? We'll have to see.
Paul is currently going for like a three-peat, on the top team in the league right now, #1 seed in this bracket. Makes sense when Paul can play whatever Paul wants. Boronic has not had the same tenure so far this year. Morgan Le Fay, Taco, that with the Medusa specifically now going up against what is an Amuz and Cobb and a Neath. With a Fafnir behind them, it feels like there's a lot of damage there for the Dragons.
Knockup will always be regarded as the strongest form of crowd control available in Smite because it is the only form where you can't Aegis midair. You can beat midair, but that's usually not in your favor. Yeah, not exactly. But the primary concern that I have right now for the Solar Scarabs is how well this Erlong Shen's actually going to be able to essentially get in there. Because when you look at all of the slow application that we're seeing from the JADE Dragons, they do have some forms of consistent CC as well out of these two hunters. Amuz and Cobb with that Stinger. He's got the Cripple. Neath's got her Root and her World Weaver. It's definitely an interesting takeaway. She even has the attack speed slow on her second ability and just an overall slow off the backflip. So it's just not going to be easy for the Erlong to really get in through the likes of the Unravel and stuff. And I think it's a fairly reliable pick that has that global presence. And if there's one thing that the JADE Dragons love doing whenever they get a global composition, it's just hammering it down in one lane. And I have a feeling that that's either going to end up being Boronic or Stuart on that Medusa.
And it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that. The Neath ults that come out of mid, always going to be troublesome whichever lane they end up choosing to bully on the side of the Dragons. The Nike, though, Hazer, is something I want to zoom in on because it was banned out by the Dragons for the first 2 games, and it has been a very prominent pick over the last few months in the SBL. It feels like it kind of gets away scot-free here. I mean, not even looked at by the Scarabs.
Yeah, super interesting to see the Heim and the Mori band over it. Maybe Scarabs more worried about a composition that features both Mori and Nike than the Nike alone. And I think Sot, he's just feeling, feed the hot hand. He just went off on Osiris. Give me it again. I'm not picking Nike. I'm going straight back to it.
And it feels good for him, but I want to know your thoughts on this one because it's going to be the tiebreaker for it. Taco, who are you leaning a little bit more towards now?
Solar Scares, that their execution is on par. I think they could reasonably take this to their Game 3 advantage, or Game 4 advantage, I should say. But JADE Dragons, they have so much objective shred that Solar Scarabs have to be on point with their contention.
Hazer, you feeling the same way?
I'm going Dragons on this one.
You're going Dragons. Oh, we're split on the desk. We'll see if the Scarabs can pull ahead or if the Dragons will take the lead right here in Game 3.
Split on the desk. Aggro and I aren't going to tell you which way we're leaning because what we want to have, Aggro,
To the left.
is a little bit... Okay, a little to the left here. JADE Dragons is what Aggro thinks have the edge
no.
going.
I stand more on my left foot.
Right, you're left. Got it.
I'm left-handed. I don't know if that's a
I'm
correlation
left-handed
or not. Left-hand game.
That is a fun fact.
There you go.
Double left-handed casters
That's
here.
why
as
our
the JADE
synergy is
Dragons.
so good.
That's why it's just fantastic. Game 3 between the Dragons and the Solar Scarabs. And Aggro, obviously now moving forward, each individual game of equal importance here gives you the edge moving into the rest of the games here in this best of 5.
Well,
Sanford Soccer,
if we're going to go on that discussion, Dave, it's actually that each game from here on out is more important than the last. Right, because
you've already been tweeted at about this, Aggro. I don't want to.
I'm just setting the record straight, man. I'm just
You're
making sure we're all on the same page, okay? Game 2 more important than Game 1, but that's because every game is more important than the one that
from there
just
on out.
happened.
Correct, absolutely. From there on out. Sanford Soccer on the Bastet here. Boronic takes a little bit of damage, but that's his clone. Honestly, I was looking at you and I looked back and I thought he was on the verge of death, and so that's on me. SOT gets jumped on by FineOK here. But Aggro, I want to look at the jungle matchup here yet again because Scream, for the first time this set, not going to get to play the Bastet.
Right.
Sanford Soccer is going to get to play the Bastet here in Game 3.
Yeah, I mean, Scream, I was talking to him briefly in the break room in between games, and he said, you think I'm getting it 3 times in a row? And I said,
nope.
I don't know if I'd give it to you 3 times in a row, that's for sure.
Early game, Erlong Shen as Sanford Soccer is pinned in place. He will jump out. I'm not getting tricked twice. That's just the clone from Boronic. Honestly, when I saw it the first time, I was like, why is that health bar so big? One auto attack from dying. It's so hard not to look at you, and I'm standing next to you, though, and so that's my fault. But early pressure from Scream finds its way into the mid lane. Everyone, though, able to hold on to their beads.
No beads there for Sanford Soccer. He goes Blink, which surprises me, but maybe feels like he needs that as an initiation tool, lets him save Pounce, which is a primary damage source for Bastet. for that. Its primary damage instead of using it to get in range or anything along those lines. A little surprised, I got to say, to see this Morgan Le Fay here for Baronic.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of a Morgan Le Fay hater right now. I just don't think that she does quite enough damage. I don't think that her early wave clear is very good. And then the payoff late just isn't quite enough.
I want to have a conversation about Morgan Le Fay.
Okay.
Because think about when it was Morgan Le Fay had just come out.
Yeah.
It was Morgan and Tiamat that were picked like every single game.
Yeah.
It felt like. Did we ever see the payoff of Morgan Le Fay from that high presence of pick
Not really.
rate? I mean, I think there was a pretty quick fall off where teams realized Morgan Le Fay just
Watch out.
wasn't going to be it. Hurrywin still has beads, uses the beads, but
He's dead.
Scream is on the chase, backflip out. There's the pin,
nice
there's the
root.
root. Hurrywin rip-tied back in by inbound stun.
Oh, no!
But Hurrywin makes it out anyway. First blood fumbled. The Solar Scarabs made a play, but just come up short of the goal line. The Jade Dragons mid laner stays alive. Red buff will get invaded, will get dropped by the Solar Scarabs. Very well could have been a first blood.
Yeah, I think it really should have been, but ends up not being the case.
Could be
Mike,
still.
Yeah, it should be okay, but he's still going to take a good amount of damage. And again, the Jade Dragons are handshaking the left side buffs for the right side buffs, but there's two buffs on the left, Dave. That's why we see dual pressure be
That's
so
just
much
math.
more important. Yeah, it's just math. It's just worth more on this left-hand side than the right. So, you know, Hurwin loses his beads. You lose both buffs on this left-hand side. I will say that it's less obvious where this pressure should be going this game because Stewart's on a traditional hunter, his first game on something that isn't in the mage tree. So it ends up being a little bit easier for him to fight and scrap and defend that blue buff. So it makes sense that maybe Sam doesn't want to be over here at all. But clearly the Solar Scarabs not letting their foot off the gas after that impressive game two.
Here's one that I know you'll get as a college football lover. The left side of the map is like the SEC.
Oh, so it's the only one that matters.
It just means more.
Right,
The
yeah.
left side of the map, two SEC teams in the national championship, right? It just means more on the left side of the map. The Jade
Right.
Dragons might need to put some emphasis over there. And Hurrywin already receiving some pressure here, aggro. Beads are down. Could open up the door for Scream to return. He's still got Blink. I want to see where these World Weavers start to go as this game goes on because you
Yep.
talk about putting pressure out.
Yep.
Kind of an unofficial third or fourth player in these ganks. Hurrywin needs to make an impact.
Definitely, and no beads for Solar Patrol or for Scream, so Sam for Soccer has plenty of good targets for that Huntress of Bass ultimate in order to make a big impact with it. You can use it to try and defend Panic Cat potentially on his left-hand side as well.
This is not all that sneaky. Mike just walked up into this as Stewart and Inbound sent some pressure his way. Stewart hit level 5, has the opportunity to ult out, holds on to the Petrify. And so Mike will leap away and head on back to base. I wonder, though, as well, aggro, even outside of the World Weaver, you look at Panda Cat here on this AMC, that's something we've already seen Baronic play here in this set in game number 1. Wonder if there's a world where Scream on this Erlong Shen, Inbound, even SOT as this game goes on, if they're in a world where they can really punish this immobile AMC.
Yeah, I think that's got to be the game plan, but AMC is really good at returning fire and making it difficult to just kill him in the 1v1 or the 2v1. He's going to try and take one of you with him the vast majority of the time. Very Zeus or Jean Kui-like in that way. And Panda Cat has been so good on this god during his career.
Yep.
He's very comfortable knowing that there's going to be a lot of pressure on him.
Sam for Soccer heads back to the right side of the map. Again, looks like a juggling of blue buff for purple buff on the other. Panda Cat and Mike just told to deal with it, while Sam for Soccer and FineOK put their pressure on right.
But that one is much better for the Jade Dragons because Sam was there to defend red. He gets red for Hurrywin, then backs and immediately goes to the blue buff. So now that's the timer. That's easy to replicate. You can just continue to do that, and that's going to be easy invades. And there's something to be said for, Solar Troll just 1v5'd us last game, it felt like.
Yeah.
Let's get the ball out of his hands. Let's disarm him a little
Especially
bit.
on the Osiris again.
Especially on the Osiris again. So setting him behind does make some sense to me. But again, it comes at a cost. Hurrywin hasn't been there for these last few reds. He's falling a bit behind again, which is a trend now in this set, that he's been behind Baronic pretty consistent.
Yeah, Baronic was just a moment ago 2 levels up over Hurrywin. Hurrywin ticks over to level 7, was level 6, while Baronic had maintained that level 8 Chronos pendant for Baronic. Needs some time to stack up that Transcendence for Hurrywin then over in the mid lane. Panda Cat also going Transcendence here, aggro. And so a different look. Scream has gone Crusher early. Stewart has gone Crusher early. Does that tell you anything about the pace that the Jade Dragons are looking for?
Not necessarily. I think that overall, is Scream going to blink before he gets hit by that World Weaver, which was smart. If Sam was in range, that probably ends up being a kill, and still potentially could, knowing that Scream doesn't have those beads. But knowing those crushers on the other side, that's a lot of early power here for the Scarabs.
Inbound going to eat the hammer, so that on cooldown for a little bit of time here. Red buff will get knocked down by the Solar Scarabs. And so another red buff invade. You know, they've been kind of split so far this game. This one comes up in the way of the Solar Scarabs. Purple buff about to respawn as well. Will the Scarabs stick around? Try to make it the full sweep of the left side buffs? The answer is no. Sanford Soccer. Rare miss on the Bastet ult from what we've seen this set, but it's been Scream doing most of the hitting.
Yeah, it's been Scream doing most of the hitting, and Sam 0 for 1 on those ultimates. And I think that is, you know, Scream made it seem really easy, but as every player is well versed in that ultimate as Scream is going to be, that's going to be something that I'm keeping my eye on for sure going forward. And I mentioned that Solar Patrol and Scream, no beads, want to get punishes. You know, new Bastet ultimate should be thought of like Fear No Evil or a Ragnarok. That these are ultimates that should guarantee kills on CC immuneless targets. The fact that we're 7.5 minutes in and that ultimate has not landed at all is telling.
And, you know, going back to Hurrywin's build here, talk about the timing of it. Hard to predict the individual items, but from what we've seen from Neath in the mid lane, you imagine it's a hidden blade at some point. And by the time the late game rolls around, whatever build Hurrywin goes for, fully stacked Transcendence, Mannequin's Hidden Blade, the other 4 items that fill out that build for Hurrywin, should be absolutely slamming the health bar of Baronic and Stu, maybe even Scream by the time the game ends.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing about this Neath build is that, you know, Neath's always been thought of as this early game pressure priority god, and she's always been good at that. It's that she's too easy to kill because of backflip being so readable, and that her late game, you know, she doesn't have an attack speed steroid traditionally, though she has a little bit of one now with Unravel, and it's just not as impactful as other hunters in the late game. But this build has kind of given Neath this late game boost in order for her to be relevant at that point in the game, and I think that does make a huge difference for her. Maybe her mid game or her mid to late game doesn't feel that good. You know, her 4-item power spike still might be as good, but it has definitely been transformative for her being able to pick up Hidden Blade.
Hurrywin takes a knee, sends World Weaver on towards Scream, deals about 1/5 of his HP and damage as inbound took an ultimate from Sanford Soccer. So it does hit this time, but doesn't end up resulting in much as the Jade Dragons, if you're counting FineOK engaging on SOT, send 3 ultimates to the right side of the map, come up empty-handed. Blue buff wasn't there, speed buff wasn't there to invade. Though, the pressure on the right is what we talked about in Game 2 with not much to show for it for the Jade Dragons. SOT reached critical mass at any point anyway, at one point anyway, nearly gets a pentakill. This time, though, the pressure from Sanford Soccer seems to be sticking a little bit better. FineOK, 2-level lead over SOTs. The Solar Scarabs show up around the red buff one more time, but Mike will push him out.
And it's worth noting that the game plan is different this game for the Jade Dragons. The last 2 games, it's been we're going to try and pressure you out in duo, and then we're just going to group up and have a better team fight than you because of our AoE. But this game, the Jade Dragons are much more objective-oriented. They've got Double Hunter and a Fafnir, which means that they really threaten towers and objectives, and they don't need to 5-on-5 you anymore. So the way they're going to play the early game is going to change a little bit as well. But the Solar Scarabs have continued. I mean, it's the Jade Dragons with this ever so slight gold lead and a slight experience lead on the right side of the map, but in mid and in left, it's the Scarabs backline that has the advantage right now, a level 11 for both Baronic and Stewart, level 10 for Hurrywin and for Panda Cat. So if the Scarabs are taking fights and both Stewart and Baronic are involved, you expect them to be the ones that take it. But if the Jade Dragons can get FineOK on a rotation, if it's a 2-on-2 on the right-hand side, something along those lines, it should be Jade Dragons' favorite.
Yeah, it's a good point. This is the style of comp that, you know, I think of like Leviathans or Bolts that love the Double Hunter, Fafnir, Frenzy, coerce on your team, and you just shred objectives down. You build your lead up that way. Both Leviathans and Bolts playing later on today, by the way. Make sure to stay tuned for our second quarterfinal matchup.
It's going to be a good one.
It's going to be a great one.
Yep.
And it's then the presence of mind, the wherewithal, the shot calling from the Solar Scarabs that have to be on point. The Jade Dragons will be able to start up these objectives, finish them off quickly, and the Solar Scarabs have to be able to answer to avoid that gold lead from piling up as the neutral objectives end up going down. But the Jade Dragons also have to be in a comfortable enough spot to, say, start up an early Gold Fury, an early Pyromancer. And that gap is just not wide enough.
Not quite, but I mean, their window doesn't need to be big with this style of comp, and it's already a frenzy for Mike, which I love. I talked a little bit before Worlds with Hazer actually about meditation and how everyone feels like it's super good and super overpowered and all this kind of stuff, and it's certainly the best relic you can have in lane, in the duo lane, but it does fall off.
Scream into mid, Hurrywind on the beads. Well timed, Riptide no good either, and walks on out of the River's Rebuke. Over on all the CC onto Hurrywind transformation out of Polar Bear Mike. This is a 4 versus 3. Taunt back through
Got
onto
Scream.
Mike. And there's a stun as well, but Hurrywind, he's got the burst damage. It's a double kill for the Neath. 1 returned by the Solar Scarab. Some fireworks in mid will give 2 kills to the Jade Dragons mid.
Beautiful bait there from the Jade Dragons. Hurwin uses his relics well that time, able to space it out, inbound, just off the mark. But even if he lands that River's Rebuke, I don't know that there was enough follow-up in order to kill him. I will say Baronic did a ton of work in that team fight. His damage over the wall in order to kill Panda Cat is massive because the Scarabs needed something, because it did not look like that team fight was going to go well for them at all, because Hurry's bait was good. Mike is in the perfect position. Sam gets his ultimate off on a priority target, pulls in Scream. That's a guaranteed kill because he's still not level 12. Good response there from the Jade Dragons. And even though it's a 2-for-1, it feels like a little bit more than that, just because they didn't get really anything positive last game.
Right, and what's worse is it's not like SOT is faring much better on the right side of the map. Both solo laners have been left alone. Sam for Soccer, he's got eyes for Stewart, who does not have his ultimate. Stu has Aegis. Sam for Soccer left running for the hills. Stewart uses the beads, and that's a World Weaver from mid. Nearly grabs a kill onto the Medusa.
And if Sam was just patient enough with that pounce, if he had just not pounced onto the Aegis, Stewart's dead in that position. That damage, you know, I'm thinking there's no way Sam has a 100-0 potential without his ultimate at this point in the game, and he doesn't. But Sam recognizes that I don't need 100-0 potential. I need like 77-0 potential, and then this Neath ultimate's going to do the rest. And he does that pretty well. And like I said, if that pounce had landed, I think that's a kill.
Jotun's Wrath now for Hurrywind. That'll get those ultimates back up. You can send them out on cooldown. Hell, already half the way there for the World Weaver. Why not send them out at will? So 13 minutes in, Jade Dragons have built up about a 1,000 gold lead now for themselves. Experience 1,500. Things trending in the direction of the Order side. That said, one of the smaller leads we've seen so far this set around this point in the game. At points in games 1 and 2, there have been 13, 14, 15,000 gold leads. So this is peanuts compared to what we've seen so far. But prior to some of that scrapping, mentioned the solo lane and how it's not like that's faring much better from that mid lane fight for the Solar Scarabs. SOT still finds himself 2 levels down. He's already lost his tier 1 tower over there on right. And FineOK on a pick like this Nike can feel very oppressive.
But remember what happened last game where Solar Patrol gets this 2-level lead and then immediately Scream comes over and ganks FineOK, sets him behind. And then immediately after that, Solar Patrol comes in and helps on rotation.
Baronic jumped on but has ultimate, has beads, and has Aegis. Morgan Le Fay, nothing if not safe. The ability to peel yourself out, very important to look at. So Hurrywind has used his ult again. Baronic has done so as well. But the actives remain in an equal state. Inbound Riptide's away. He is locked into the River's Rebuke with 4, and there is just way too much
Big petrify
from the Jade Dragons. But Hurrywind takes the damage, backflips away, and he will live with single-digit HP.
Man, so close. And PBM's already in Dragon form, still has that Frenzy ready to go, but Hurry can't stick around.
Coerce spreads out. Frenzy spreads out. You are committing onto the objective at this point if you're the Jade Dragons, but the Solar Scarabs are here.
Hurry's still
and
here.
SOT is as well. Sam for Soccer in the tether, and he has to back away. It's a big fight from the Solar Scarabs. The Jade Dragons decimated. Scarabs find 3 kills. Sam goes back in, but he will leave empty-handed.
What just happened? What just happened to the Jade Dragons? They get the pick on the inbound, and all of a sudden they're feeling like they can waltz around and do whatever they want. But this is not the Solar Scarabs team that just got crushed in game 1. This is a Scarabs team with a little bit more confidence and a little bit more readiness in order to take these fights. I mean, Hurwin sticks around at 1 HP, and Solar Patrol just tosses a flail over the wall and gets the easiest kill of his life. And the rest of the Dragons just this overcommit onto the Fury. I hated that call. I hated that call more than I hate ketchup and mayonnaise. And that's a lot, Dave. I hate
Together?
That. Yes, they're terrible.
Or independently,
separately,
whatever.
both,
It doesn't
whatever.
matter. You hate it all.
What was that?
I don't know. Jade Dragons, now their chance is to steal away the Gold Furies. The Solar Scarabs have put themselves on it. Inbound takes the World Weaver. This Fury will not die. Quietly, Panda Cat takes down Inbound, but the Scarabs get the Fury.
Bye, Sam.
It's Sam for Soccer right back into the fray. Baronic on a killing spree. Morgan Le Fay flexing those muscles just a bit, and another 3 down for the Jade Dragons. And hey, we got Inbound again, but what else?
Who cares? They got the Fury. They got 3 for 0 again. I mean, now Mike has just died over and over, back to back over again. Panda Cat dies with relics up that time. I want to take a look back and see what happened to the initial time, because this call is just completely psycho in my mind. This pick is great. I mean, inbound doesn't have beads. He went meditation.
Right.
Guarantee the stun. CC chain is perfect. Lock him in. Great. This petrify was really good from Stewart, but it really only hit Hurry, and he lives. Great. Why are we here? What possesses
Baronic is untouched,
them to
right?
do it? I mean, yeah,
Big
Baronic and Stewart are untouched. Scream just has a perfect initiation, and that goes great. And then they decide to fight again.
World Weaver intended
Blocked.
for Scream, taken by Baronic. Fine, okay, has already used the Sentinel of Zeus. It doesn't have the shield to show for it. Tanky enough to live throughout most of the damage, but the River's Rebuke keeps Mike at bay, and Fine OK has been picked. The Solar Scarabs as 4 on the Pyromancer, but Pyromancer not taken down, inbound, pulled back in to Sanford Soccer and Hurry when they will at least get a kill, but it's onto the Emoja yet again. The Solar Scarabs get the Pyromancer as well. We have seen inbound for what? Over and over and over again.
It's just another objective for the Solar Scarabs, another 2-for-1 for Inbound's life. He's 0-4, and he's still ahead of Mike because Mike's dying every time too.
Sanford Soccer, you feel desperation at this point to make a play happen. He is in mid with Baronic, who is 5-0-3 on
He's
the Morgan Le Fay. Chronos Pendant, Divine Ruin, Soul Reaver, yes please.
And I've said, I started off the game by saying I'm not a huge fan of Morgan Le Fay, but Baronic is playing it so well right now, and he's got such a big lead. And this is the type of god that, when even or a little bit behind, I feel like isn't doing quite enough. From ahead, when you can step up and use that wildfire to try and put a dot on someone, and then if they use a movement ability, they eat a big chunk, or you can play a little bit more up and use that Sigil Mastery a little bit more aggressively. This god feels insane in those moments. And the movement speed and all that kind of stuff you get from the ultimate and the lifesteal, it just feels really, really good, and Baronic is in a position to just hard carry this game. And Baronic has played very well this set, by the way. Even the game that they lose in game 1, he was consistently ahead of Heroin. He's played really, really lights out in his first SPL World Championship experience. I mean, he's won a World Championship on Xbox, but to have this type of performance in a big pressure situation here on the PC side of things is impressive.
Yeah, Baronic has continually stepped up to the plate. How many times have we talked about the level gap in mid? And had it be Baronic that we're talking about. 3 games in a row now, it feels like. And he is in a position to carry out the rest of this game. Got one of the best tier 2 items in the game. Some of the percent pen online working towards the Ob Shard. Solar Scarabs, sub 20 minutes are the team. If you told me with these 2 compositions, the Scarabs would be the ones pulling an early Fire Giant, I would have called you crazy. But the Jade Dragons are here to call them on it. The gold lead is big. Maybe not that big.
No, this is a bit spooky. They've got great sustain, though, from this Umoja, so they can afford to take a few risks in this position, but you're in such a commanding lead, 4,000 at 19 minutes. You don't need to throw it away by going for a Fire Giant you don't need. Look at the tier 1s up in mid and in solo lane. That's free gold. You can get further ahead without taking a big risk.
We're rolling the dice. We're flipping the coin on the Fire Giant. It is SOT with the engage onto Hurrywind in the back. Good damage out from Panda Cat, though, as well. World Weaver has already been used. Fine OK left alone with all of the Solar Scarabs. This Sentinel of Zeus has got to be big, but it is not big enough. The River's Rebuke, fantastic. 5 members grouped up, though, for the Solar Scarabs, and that means the damage can cleave. And the Jade Dragons, they'll find a re-engage.
Petrify was excellent. Stewart going in. Panda Cat nowhere to go, and it's a clean sweep for the Solar Scarabs. Unstoppable is right. No one is shutting them down this game. 4-0 for the Chaos side.
Sanford Soccer has got a watch in the wings as his team dies around him. This Fire Giant suddenly much, much easier for the Solar Scarabs. They are on the precipice of going up 2-1 in this best of 5, knocking out the Jade Dragons with one more win. If you're able to close this one out, your world gets a whole lot easier after you take down this Fire.
And we talked about the identity of the Dragons draft, that they want to be the ones on the objectives, that they want to be the ones trying to threaten burning these objectives. But it's so different from what they were playing games 1 and 2. In that team fight, they played it like they had the Zhang Yamoja composition. Heroin gets initiated upon by Solar Troll. Think Hurry does a good job, doesn't waste anything, just backs up, peels himself nicely with a good root. And that fight looked okay to me from that position. But Fine OK goes way too deep all by himself. Whether Sam's supposed to be there with him or not, he just wasn't at the end of the day. And so Fine is left to the Wolves entirely. There's no dive. Hurry and Panda Cat just can't quite get on the same targets. And look at how tanky Solar Troll is, by the way. Blackthorn, Mystical, Nemean, Midgardian. All anti attack, or auto attack rather. And we saw a 4 physical composition with this AMC in game 1, and it didn't really work that well. The key with these compositions is that Stinger has to land on a tank, because that prot shred is %, and it works for your team. So that needs to happen. So if the game plan is we have to kill Solar Troll, which is what every fight is going to have to be from here on out, the number one thing has got to be Stinger on side. And if that doesn't happen, I don't see a world in which they can kill him, because there's no executioner for them. They're not stripping away those % pens. All these maces, I just don't think can work up against this build.
I'm not sure SOT died at all in game 2. Clearly has not died here in game 3. It has been an unstoppable performance from SOT in a team where a lot of the conversation is centered around Scream, for good reason. The bring back of this team over the course of the year. The players that are stepping up alongside Scream, who's played very well here today as well. SOT, massive performance. Baronic, the man who has grown into the mid lane something fierce. 7-0-4 in game number 3 against the Jade Dragons, the underdogs, if you can even call them that any further. Solar Scarabs, a few Phoenixes away and 1 Titan from going up 2-1 in this best of 5 set. And the answer has to be, at what point does Hurrywin finally get to a World Weaver that's going to start deleting these health bars? I'm not sure. It looks like a Titan's Bane a bit down the stretch here. You're going to have to finish off that Hidden Blade to get some good damage in onto Baronic. You can't lose Final K in the meantime. That's for sure. He is in the River's Rebuke, and all 5 members of the Solar Scarabs will call him on it. Sentinel of Zeus buys him some time. Taunt used as well.
Sam got instant
Baronic grabs a kill onto Sam for soccer. It is 8-0-5 in the mid lane. You are without your solo. You are without your jungler for 45 seconds. The Solar Scarabs smell blood. They smell a 2-1 lead here in this best of 5 set. SOT blocking out the damage from the rest of the Jade Dragons as the Titan is leashed back into the mid lane. Phoenix Hurrywin desperately finding damage onto the front line of the Solar Scarabs, as well as Panda Cat over on the left. The Titan is going down slowly, but the Jade Dragons simply don't have enough. The Solar Scarabs go up 2-1.
Unbelievable. The Solar Scarabs have just come out and hit the Jade Dragons with a 1-2 punch that basically has them on the ropes, man. I mean, just 2 back-to-back dominating performances. And this Osiris for Solar Troll looks completely unstoppable. That right side of the map just working well right now in the mid lane as well. Baronic is going absolutely nuts in this set. Some of these rookies, man, I mean, Stewart playing well, Baronic playing well. What else can you say? The Scarabs team, you can just never count them out.
Feels like this set has flown by. I mean, we've had just a few 20, 25-minute games, very average as far as game length goes. Knockdown, drag out game 1, game 2, and now game 3. You heard me right. Solar Scarabs 1 game away from knocking out the Jade Dragons
and being in the semifinals.
Being in the semifinals of the SMITE World Championships. Woo! Yeah, don't scratch your eyes, clean your ears, whatever you need to do on that one. Solar Scarabs 1 game away. Can they do it in game 4? Stick around and find out.
Benji is around the back. Good River's Rebuke from inbound. Keeps the back line out of this fight. Aurora's got the Scarabs blessing onto himself. Slice close spin. Ducks back down. And it's a big engage from SOT. Over on the Oracles. SOT going massive.
Our journey has been arduous. Tiamat's reign has divided us, but no longer.
But Lady Bellona...
Have some faith, Merlin. They're gods.
What if we're not ready?
Then we'll fall united.
My liege, be on your guard.
The child and the daggers are no match for our gods!
This is not the end. For there is no end. Death, life, destruction, creation, threads of the same fabric. No matter who you worship, where you call home, We are all connected in this life. And in the face of destruction, you can despair alone or persevere together. This is not a world built in your image.
No. It is a better one.
llamo Fabi. Hola. Fabi, hola. Hola.
Well, the Scarabs take the lead 2-1 after another convincing game in their favor. The Dragons, you can see, still behind me, still opting for first pick in the next game, and a lot that they have going on. But if you want to join the conversation, hang out with like-minded peers, not just in the chat, but as well as in Discord, you can, in fact, join the official SMITE Discord at discord.gg/SmiteGame. Make sure that you're talking to everybody, hyping up these games, and, of course, enjoying them all with the community. I'm sure you'll love it. All you have to do is go to discord.gg/SmiteGame. It'll bring you right in, exactly the way you need to, and you'll be able to join the conversation there. Of course, again, always tweet at us as well, at SmitePro, using hashtag SWC at home. And if you do all these, you're just as involved as we are, at least close enough, as close as you're going to be able to get to. Either way, we are now in a position where we're going to game number 4. Very exciting for the first set, because a lot of people were worried that this one might have been just 3. But it's actually the Scarabs, Hazer, right now that are up by 1, and they looked really good doing it 2 times in a row.
Yeah, they've looked fantastic. They did a typical Game 1 Scarabs performance. They come back in, they make these draft adjustments, they play on the solo side of the maps, and they force the Dragons over there. And they've just been controlling the last 2 games.
And Taco, there's a little bit about it. I mean, the Scarabs have been looking good, but it's not all on them. I mean, they are playing really well, but there's always these moments, these little catalysts the Dragons are providing for them that it just feels like is opening up their opportunities even more.
But it's just as Hazer was mentioning, it seems, you would think that the Solar Scarabs have taken the Jade Dragons hostage or something to playing on that solo side of the map, because in Game 1, we saw absolute control and domination. All the Jade Dragons did was play duo side map pressure. So you think, okay, well, stray away from that a little bit in Game 2, understandable, see where you can dabble, dip your toes in the water of that solo side, but they did, and it was a catastrophe. And then Game 3, they go right back to running it down into their own deaths, essentially, and it just seemed as though there were so many different circumstances. I think the most notable one, though, by far being around that 19.5 minutes, 20-minute mark. Not sure if it's going to hit the replay section or not, but Solo or Troll, in all seriousness, I think he overextended a bit with a Lord of the Afterlife, and Hurry played it perfectly on the escape initially, but guess who's left behind in no man's land? It's fine, okay. He's initiating 1v4 for whatever reason, and it causes the rest of the Jade Dragons to try and turn around, but by then, you've already expended most of what you had to offer in the team fights just to bail your mid laner out, and it just seems so disjointed from the Jade Dragons, and I think a lot of it is just stemming from the fact that FineOK insist on trying to be this solo lane reckoning force like what we're seeing out of Solo or Troll for the Scarabs, and it's just not working. It is not as fluid. There is nowhere near as much synergy as what we're seeing from the Scarabs.
And it's definitely been a struggle for them, and you know you have to be feeling good for the Scarabs. Bobby with the pop-off he had at the very end. Hazer, you had pointed this out to me, though, and you could see it there, was the goose egg that Baronic had. Not just this game, but the game before that. And the game before that. He hasn't died this set.
Yeah, 0 deaths for Baronic. I was saying he's not like Paul, but here he is making Morgan Le
Doing the
Fay
same
work,
thing.
doing no deaths in 3 games. Maybe he is Paul. I don't know.
It is in the circumstance that if they win this game, he'll get to figure out who does the better Paul impression, him or Paul himself. Because that's what you get. Winning this one, you move forward semifinals to go up against the Titans. The Dragons still first pick, and they're not going to be changing up too much as of yet. This Odin has been banned by them every single game, and it's been the Odin Izanami. They're going to stick to their guns right there. Hell banned out by the Scarabs. And they tend to be sticking to the exact same top 2 as well, Taco. It's this Hell Mercury. They just do not want to deal with it.
But if there's anything, it's the JADE Dragons who have to make the shift at this point, and it's the Osiris, if anything, that has to be priority number 1 for the JADE Dragons to try and force SOT off of. Yamoja, I think, just coming out as a generic staple ban, because even if Inbound doesn't have the greatest track record with Yamoja, she's still a Yamoja, and that ultimate is still incredibly problematic throughout team fights. But it's going to be the Bastet run back here in that first pick position, which means the Solar Scarabs, they don't have to stray away from this Osiris, and why not just keep feeding SOT a pick that has worked out beautifully for him 2 rounds in a row.
Now, last time it was the Osiris Yamoja. With Yamoja gone, it feels like, hey, let's go ahead and grab the other top picks that we picked up. Olarun already locked in for the Scarabs, and they're going to match it. I thought they were about to lock it in. I was like really hyped that was going to lead in perfectly for them. No, they're going to take a little bit more time. Either way, they get the Olarun, which looked really good a couple of games ago, was banned out for them last time. It's actually the Yamus and Cobb here. And Hazer, that's a powerful pick.
Yeah, they've not been allowed this throughout, and I feel like this is exactly the thing I feared the Solar Scarabs would get against the Dragons. Now they're getting it in a game which could decide the set. Olarun, AMC, they ran this a little bit in the play-ins, and they just were absolutely dominant. I think it's Baronic's best god right now. I think it's Stuart's best god right now. Do the JADE Dragons even want to take away this Osiris? Does FineOK want it? I hope so, because otherwise they're giving away everything. But they have made an adjustment here, and we've got both Bastet and Erlang Shen locked in for the JADE Dragons. So does that mean that this Bastet is going over to solo or over to support, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, Taco, trying to think about it, I think the last person I saw play Erlang solo was Maddox, I think, for the Bolts, like, earlier this year. It doesn't happen often. We can speculate on that all day, but the Zeus finally gets locked in. It's been a lot of Zhang Kui. We've seen the versatility from Hurry, but this has so far got a 100% win rate for this team.
Hard to fight into that Zeus burst damage more than anything else, and it could provide a lot of issues for that Amuzinka, specifically in the mid lane, because normally you'd expect AMC to have all the zoning potential out there, but when it comes to Zeus, having that chain lightning feature makes it a little bit more problematic for that jungle mid lane pairing to be as, I guess, aggressive. You've definitely got to be a little bit more mindful there, especially given the fact that if this is an Erlang jungle and a Bastet flex pick into supporter solo side, well, I think that it's fair to say that there is a very strong CC burn between the Bastet ultimate and the Erlang knockup, as well as the Erlang taunt.
Well, the Scarabs seem to think that it's more likely a solo pickup for them, because they do ban out Kepri and Ganesh taken away. On the other side, the Naja does show up on the screen, but it's finally just banned out here alongside the Gilgamesh. 2 things the Dragons don't want to deal with. But I mean, Osiris, Olarun, I'm looking at the Amus and Cobb. Hazer, first off, I'm immediately double Hunter thinking of Fafnir, but I feel like they've just got a nice wide open field.
Yeah, it's looking great. They're hovering the Humbats here. What I was thinking was Daji might be about to come through. 3 gods on the other side who are vulnerable to that Paolo. Bastet does have a little bit of CC immunity on that ult, unless I'm mistaken, but Bat's ult definitely going to be powerful here in knocking down this Zeus and knocking down this Erlang, and something that Scream did very, very, very well in the play-ins when his Neja was not available.
Something that we're worried about. You mentioned it, but Hunbat's hovered, not locked in. It is the Cirquette that gets locked in its place. Taco, How do you feel about this? I mean, Dashi was mentioned, Hunbats was hovered and mentioned. How does the Circuit match in?
Well, we saw Circuit in game 2 for support there for
True.
inbound, and there were definitely some, heavy question marks around it because it didn't look like it was the most ideal situation to be taking a Circuit in, but I think inbound was incredibly effective in the sense that his sole purpose was just to burn Hurriwin's beads, and I'm kind of anticipating a lot more of that with this Circuit into Zeus, because Circuit, if she's building hybrid or even just building outright tanky, Zeus isn't going to be able to kill her immediately, and if he expends his purification beads just to escape that Circuit ultimate, well, now he's got Lord of the Afterlife on him. Now he's got Amus and Ka be able to close the gaps, I think, with some of that range out of the Hornets and the Stinger, and all around, well, it's always going to be a threat against the Zeus, I feel.
That's something that they're going to need to be worried about. Dragons looking for their bottom 2 alongside the Erlong Bastet Zeus that they've picked up. And realistically, the Scarabs are up in the air. Hazer, how do you feel about this Circuit? Specifically, I guess, matching alongside with what I would guess is this Amus and Coven mid.
So I think it's strong. I mean, I think Circuit doesn't have really great setup for a lot of abilities that you would come out of a mage most of the time, because that ult control, you need to communicate to your team really clearly where you're throwing them. One thing she does do really well though is she's safe, she's slippery, she's hard to lock down, and with this comp on the other side, the Erlang Sheng, the Zeus, they have incredible CC for any frontliner that gets caught, and we see Scotty and Terra hovered out here. I would love a Terra pick, actually.
Yeah, so Terra is something that we could talk about, easy realm of possibility. Unless Barracuda's playing, Scotty just seems absolutely outrageous to think about. But it's hovered. Taco, we do get the Terra. And actually was like an incredibly popular pick that I feel like just isn't getting the light as much as she deserves.
If Scotty is locked in, like she has just been locked in, then the Jade Dragons, I will lose my mind if they continue trying to play through the solo side of the map, because right now their composition is dependent on their execution around duo side buff invade pressure, which is something Scotty can definitely do against Olorun and Amus and Ka, but Hazer, you're asking for the Daji, and it seems as though the Scarabs are willing to deliver.
Yeah, I said it was a good Daji game before, and then Terra and Scotty get locked in as well. My goodness, this is one of the best Daji games I have ever seen. Scream's got to be feeling real good about this one. Let's see what he can do with it, though.
It almost feels like because you had called for it where the Circuit was locked in. It feels like they wanted to lull them into a false sense of security. Okay, we'll lock in the Circuit. There's no way they're going to think we're going to give it back to inbound. No way. They get the Daji on top of this Taco. Are the Scarabs going to be able to close it out here?
Well, as strong as a Powwow can be, it does still depend a little bit as far as how those laning phases are concerned.
True.
But the Jade Dragons, again, we saw them play game 1 through that duo side of the map, but if they choose to keep trying to challenge Solo or Troll and Scream on the solo, I think that's just a matchup they're going to keep losing the 2v2 in.
Yeah, Solar Troll's more than happy to just say, all right, come play at me. I've got my Osiris, and we are going to be just fine. Daji locked in up against this composition, but the Zeus, the 100% win rate, the Scotty, which again, Scotty is someone I don't think of except for Barracuda, and usually it's, okay, they've been winning a lot lately, he doesn't have to worry about anything, this game is almost, I don't want to say meaningless to them, but that's typically how he played it throughout the year. I mean, does Scotty play well up against specifically Olorun here, Hazer, or is it just another pick for Panda Cat?
So she does have pretty good range, is the one thing I'd say. That 3 is quite range, and you can throw Calder in there, get him to do your dirty work for you, and not have to step into those Sanctified Fields range. And maybe you can force relics out of Olorun and allow your team to punish a little bit, forces ult with the lane bullying, but I don't know. It's going to be tough here for Panda Cat. He's going to have to show us that he's got one of the best Scatties in the world right now. Otherwise, whew, he's going to be in trouble.
Taco, I know you play a lot of carry. How are you feeling about the Scotty?
Man, Scotty feels a lot better when you're not looking at Circuit, Osiris, and Daji to play it into. The Osiris alone, I think, is enough of a menacing factor that Scotty is probably the last god that I would really want to be contemplating, but I have to imagine this is just Panda Cat trying to brute force that duo lane matchup. And if he's able to get away with it, could be problems for Stuart.
It's going to be fun to find out, although it's never truly promising when you say, well, yeah, that pick's really good if you cover up most of that team.
Just 3 out of 5, it's
yeah,
fine.
Definitely feels shaky. We'll see if the Dragons are going to be playing through the duo lane or if they're going to continue what has been a not necessarily successful bout over there in solo. Will the Scarabs move on to the semis or will the Dragons push us to Game 5? Let's find out in Game 4.
One more game for the Cinderella story of the Solar Scarabs to continue on into the semi-finals. The Jade Dragons, they've got to figure it out, and they've got to do it in back-to-back games up against what looks like an incredible composition. Panda Cat picks up this Scotty, which aggro we've talked about.
Yep.
Feels good in lane, right, against this Oleron.
Love it.
Once you get out of lane, you might be a little nervous.
Yeah, I love the Scotty and Oleron matchup. I think that it just has the opportunity to snowball this lane really hard. It can zone really well. It has that range CC now with the ultimate. I think there are a lot of things to love about this matchup in lane. Once Panda Cat leaves lane, you know, it's like he's the big fish in the small pond, and he's feeling really good.
Right.
You know, and everything's working really well. And then he goes out into the ocean, and it's nothing but like sharks just waiting for him, and they're hungry. I don't know, man. I really feel like the Scarabs came away with such a strong draft. I think this Dodgy pick was absolutely phenomenal, not just for the lack of CC immunity on 4 out of 5 members of the Jade Dragons, though that doesn't hurt, but it's Zeus's worst matchup by a mile. Because
we haven't talked about Zeus, right?
Every assassin that kills Zeus, which is all of them, also dies to Zeus, because Zeus just has the damage, and he can do it, you know, drops the lightning storm, he'll do it even when he's dead. Against Dodgy, she goes up, and you can't do that.
What about early in the game? How does that feel for Hurry when he has jumped on, he has used the beads, but Sot's here as well. Hello, first blood for the Solar Scarabs. Sanford Soccer has to weasel away from the fray, and they make Hurrywin pay. Right off the bat, beads gone, first blood to the Scarabs.
Cheese is good with this time of year, and it's cheesy in this game. Hurrywin ends up losing his life. I mean, Solar Troll's going to pay for it by losing a lot of farm on this right-hand side, but I don't think FinoK can ever kill him on this rotation back. Maybe he can.
Uh-oh, there's a 3 versus 2 on the left side of the map as well. Odd-numbered fights everywhere for the Jade Dragons. You've now dropped a kill on the left side of the map as well. You need to get this kill, and you cannot die for it if you're FinoK. Are his eyes too big? No, they're not. FinoK knocks down Sot, and signs of life from the Jade Dragons on the right side of the map. Sanford Soccer, he's going to try to punch back here. He's got the pin onto Baronic. FinoK's got the root as well, and we are tied in game 4.
What is going on, man? I mean, pedal to the metal early on in this game. Just 2 for 2 in 2 minutes across the board. And it ends up being pretty favorable, I think, overall for the Jade Dragons. Because look at all the farm that Sanford Soccer has gotten, although this can't happen. Scream might be dead!
Scream! Detonate! No! Gets countered! All inbound jumps on him. No chance to detonate. Hurry went down for the second time this game. Sanford Soccer's got a kill on the side. Are you kidding me? It's anarchy in Atlanta as the Jade Dragons and the Scarabs go 3 for 3 in 2.5 minutes.
What is going on? And Scream and inbound still just moving around the jungle. 2-man around the jungle to try and get these buffs. Mike doesn't end up getting the purple, but at least won't die for it in this instance. I mean, Hurry, I think, may have been able to kill Scream, the damage mitigation during the 2. I think only whenever it's hitting you in the back, so I think that Scream may have died to that detonate damage, but then that Cobra's Kiss from inbound was so good, and that's what ends up getting that kill. And it's worth noting that Hurry ends up wasting his beads level 1, because there's no CC coming from Scream. He just kind of beads us in reaction to the blink sound, and that might have gotten him killed.
Well, look, Sot's been an issue in games 1, 2, and 3. So let's put an end to it if we're the Jade Dragons. That's what they're thinking at least. That's simple. Without the ultimate online, Lord of the Afterlife not there for another couple of minutes. Sanford Soccer, FinoK combine for another kill on the right side of the map. So Sam starts off. I mean, you got to take some stock here at some point. Panda Cat uses his beads, sends some damage inbound's way. As Mike had left the lane for a moment. You got to take some stock here. All right, so Sanford Soccer's got a couple kills. Scream's got a couple kills. FinoK and SOT kind of flip-flopped as far as KDA goes. A little lead for Baronic over there in the mid lane. Really aggro, it feels like, in the first 4 minutes. It's both junglers that are now at a big power play position as far as their kills go. Both 2-0.
Yeah, it has to be these junglers that are going to continue to keep this pace high. But, you know, like we said in the last game, it's backline looking better for the Solar Scarabs and the right side of the map looking better for the Jade Dragons. And FinoK on the Nike just did not do enough with that lead in order to justify the amount of resources put into getting it for him. Has to be able to do it now on the Bastet.
We talked about Bastet solo.
Yeah, I mean, the tools have got to be there more so for Bastet solo than the Nike solo.
Hurrywin's been jumped on a couple of times so far this game. Red buff has been an afterthought. That's a taunt in from Sanford Soccer. Palau's out. They connect onto Hurrywin and Sam. PBM is the one who gets pulled in. Lightning Storm out. That delays the engage from the Solar Scarabs. Gives the Dragons a bit of breathing room as they will back away. But you already see the potency of that engage from Scream. Is Panda Cat going to get dove here? He's got low health, but Hurrywin, Scream realize the rest of the Jade Dragons are rallying around this purple.
Yeah, and Stewart had already used the ultimate, but ends up getting the ultimate from Panda Cat, pokes him nice and low. So this idea that we're going to just put pressure on this left-hand side has not come to pass. You can this draft cannot allow Panda Cat to come out of this laning phase at a deficit, or even. Panda Cat has to leave this lane ahead, and if it's any other result, I think it's a failure for the Jade Dragons, and I just don't see a path for them to win this game unless Panda Cat can start to bully Stewart eventually.
Inbound. Hovering around, wondering when Panda Cat would head on back to lane. Nice moment here for Sanford Soccer. You're going to take away the right side of the jungle here. Scream off to a good start. You're going to limit that by taking away some of that farm. 1 level lead for Sanford Soccer in the jungle. And the brawling for the Jade Dragons and the Scarabs. Now a game paced like this, you would normally you put all your chips on the Jade Dragon side of the table. You're talking about high kills, high octane early on in the game. But I think you're right, Aggro, where you have to look at the specific lane matchups and what you're looking at as this game goes on. So you love the pacing. This is generally a Jade Dragon's pace. But the leads and the gold have to find their way into the right spot. I think interesting for Hurrywin, not as far as build goes, but the way that the game changes its dynamic, looking like it's going to be Book of the Dead for Hurrywin. Starts off with Book of Thoth. And if you're going to get jumped on, anyway, having a character that can synergize with that Book of the Dead build is only but a good thing.
Exactly. This is the right type of build. And again, Zeus is not supposed to be living through team fights, but he's got to be able to get his damage off on the right targets. Right. And that's the thing about Daji is that she kills him and doesn't take that damage at the exact same time.
Man, there's just not been a free red buff for Hurrywin. Hurrywin's maybe got the first one of the game. The Scarabs have put all their pressure, all their eggs in that basket as this game has gone on. Feels like Breastplate of Valor could be a great option for Hurrywin if Daji and Baranik are going to be sending a lot of damage his way. Inbound as well. Synergize as well with that Book of Thoth start. Purple buff as well has been taken away by the Scarabs a whole lot. For Soccer had no chance as the Scarabs send 3 to the purple buff. Fine, okay. We've seen this time and time again. Solo kill for Fino on right, and that'll pull back the score just a bit for the Dragons.
Man, Fino K feels like the guy who's just trying to do it all right now, because every time you're like, oh boy, this game just might be over. The set might be over. That the Dragons are just hosed. It's Fino K hits Slain Solo Retrol, and you're like, maybe. Maybe we can.
The way my brain keeps working.
Yeah, maybe that can work. But just a great trap laid, great ward coverage deep in the enemy jungle there, and makes it an easy trap laid for Sanford Soccer.
Polar Bear Mike taunted in. Nice triple root from PBM. And that is everything expended from the Solar Scarabs. No chance back in. Stewart, you're going to be soloed in a 1v3. He says no. He'll back away. Panda Cat playing on thin margins there. You overstep an ounce, and suddenly the Solar Scarabs are able to jump on you and you at least get your beads burnt. But like the look from Panda Cat, but Aggro.
He's down 2 levels.
He's down 2 levels.
Yeah, I mean, great. He almost killed him. That was good. It's just like Stewart in game 1, right? Down 4 levels. He almost killed him. Cool, but you're still down 4 levels.
Does Fino K being up 2 levels counteract that totally in your mind, or is there still so much emphasis on this Scotty as the game goes on? You need it to be there regardless of where you find your leads elsewhere.
Yeah, because I think the Scotty is just going to, I mean, maybe Panda Cat proves me wrong and he comes to team fights and he slams, but I think he's going to be getting slammed the vast majority of the time in these team fights. So if you're not eating during the laning phase, you're going to find yourself pretty hungry at the end of the day as this Scotty. And with Hurry behind as much as he is now as well, because of these repeated red buff invades. Yeah. That's only 1 member of the Solar Scarabs who's significantly behind. Really 2, because Scream has mortgaged his farm for the rest of the team.
Fino K uses his leap in onto Sot. Now we are tower diving Scream up into the Palau. Fino K has survived for the time being. Beads out. Palau out. SOT nearly goes down, but there's no rotation in. But yes, there is. Sanford Soccer's here. He's got the pin. This one hand-delivered by Fino K himself, and Sot will live to fight another day.
Exactly what the Jade Dragons need. And, I kind of advocated that Panda can't come out of this lane behind. And I think it might be too late for that conversation already. I think that he is just going to leave this laning phase behind. And now you've got one hope. The shining hope in the darkness is the right side of the map. All 5 kills are split between Sam and Fine. They're 5, 1, and 3 combined. I think that maybe you just accept that the initial game plan wasn't working, and it's time to go to plan B, which is just keep camping Final K's lane and keep getting him ahead.
We're playing on razor-thin margins here. A game where the Solar Scarabs down 1 kill, up between 700 and 1,000 gold XP. Spread out pretty evenly. SOT sees a couple low health targets, sees a couple ultimates fly by the wayside. He'll use his own. Sanford Soccer benefits from some of that sustain. So the Erlang Shen, we've seen games where Erlang Shen aggro can, start off well or even start off quietly and then just sort of falls off as this game goes on. That's now my continued trend. Of course, the Bastet for fine, okay, 2 levels up. You have to follow along with that. That has to be an important topic of conversation and something to keep our eyes on. But this Erlang Shen, as this game goes on, pivotal for the Jade Dragons, because I have seen too many games in the SPL this year where an Erlang Shen becomes a non-factor by the time the game closes out.
Exactly. You have to really leverage that snowball during the earlier stages of the game. And Sam, I like him rushing Magi's in this position. It's going to be so good up against this Cirquette and up against the Daji in particular. That's where you're going to need it.
Hurrywind in, or out rather, as inbound is in. Red buff invaded and dropped by the Jade Dragons. It's only PBM who's here with a chance to steal away. Gets the root onto Stewart. Red buff still not secured by either team. Ends up getting taken down on the other end by the Solar Scarabs. Palau through. Sanford Soccer alone in the mid lane. Pin is on the other end, and there's just way too much in mid. Sam left to his own devices, and his own devices will fail.
Yeah, 3 ultimates used,
my God,
but they get him. Yeah, Hurry nearly dies to inbound and is still under some threat in this position.
Inbound jumps through,
Nice
stun from PBM and detonate. And inbound hands one back to the Jade Dragons mid laner. Could not have come a moment too soon. Hurrywind needed some air, and it has been hand-delivered by Mike.
Exactly what the doctor ordered there, and a big play by Mike. Hurry gets a little bit of farm, but he still misses so much. I mean, yeah, inbound dies, but I don't even hate that death there from Bobby because he zoned Hurry from like 2 mid waves and a red buff. That's worth more. His life is worth a lot less than 2 waves and a red buff when it comes to golden experience. So, a couple of seasons ago, the meta was supports just follow around junglers and prevent them from farming. In that situation, it's kind of just following on the mid laner and preventing him from farming.
This has been absolutely relentless from both of these teams. Bede's gone from Veronic now in the mid lane. Is Polar Bear Mike on the Terra.
He's going off.
Has continued to be an onslaught. 0-0-1 does not do him justice. Pyromancer looked at by the Jade Dragons and taken away by SOT. This man will not be denied. Maybe a Penta in game number 2, but not the Pyromancer here in game 4. The Jade Dragons needed it, and SOT wags his finger.
Yeah, Hurry's just got to secure that with detonate. They've got to keep it out of damage range until his detonate's up. If it was down, I don't think it was. I think that he just thought he wasn't going to need to use it, but he did. He needed it for sure.
This is just brutal. Hurrywind can't even walk by his own red buff without inbound jumping on him. He at least has Book of the Dead now. Hasn't fully stacked up his Book of Thoth. That'll be here shortly. Survivability at least takes a little spike now for Hurrywind, where it feels like the first 13 minutes have just been oppressive. He has not had a get-out-of-jail card at any point in any of these dives. Now with the way that this build looks, there is that extra minute of survivability to get that damage off, and he'll need to use it here. Mike, with his last bit of mana, sends out his ultimate inbound down to Sanford Soccer, and the rest of the Solar Scarabs want nothing else to do with this fight.
And good ultimate coming from Panda Cat, gonna root down Solar Troll. Final K's ultimate splits the uprights. Needed that one in order to pull back Solar Troll, but still, the Jade Dragons finally get Hurry a red buff, and that death I don't like from inbound. The last one, I think excusable. That one, he's just too split up from the rest of the team. Mike does a really good job of just using his body as a shield. Just gets in there and forces the Scarabs. If you want to get to my mid laner, you got to go through me. And he still had beads, so that dodgy ultimate not a threat.
Yeah, who cares about that kill though? The Solar Scarabs are asking that. They got 2,000 gold in the lead. All this farm just being taken away. I have not seen one free red buff given to Hurrywind. It's all been a fight. Scrapping for every ounce of farm on the map. The Gold Fury isn't going to be a scrap though. Polar Bear Mike is around the Fury and does not have a chance to take it away, and so 2,000 gold becomes about 3,000 gold for the Solar Scarabs as the onslaught continues.
In the early stages of the year, the Solar Scarabs have found themselves in positions like this, where they had good leads, they had a game plan, they were executing on it. And then something like that death for inbound and they don't get anything out of it happens, and then they just kind of peter out. They ride out the rest of the game, and maybe they win, maybe they don't. This iteration of the Solar Scarabs now, something goes wrong, their game plan doesn't happen. You know what they do? They group up and go right to gold.
Yep.
And they don't let the Jade Dragons set their feet and decide how they want to do it. And that's what the great teams do. in Smite. They don't give you a moment to breathe. They consistently force you to be on time, have vision, have relics, have ultimates, have buttons, and you better not miss, because otherwise we're going to punish you for it. And the Solar Scarabs, they're looking like a great team right now.
They're looking like a fantastic team. The growth cannot be understated. Sanford Soccer and Fine OK have dragged the Jade Dragons kicking and screaming back into a game where everything else has been going wrong. Unfortunately, this time, another ultimate missing from Fine OK. And so you're going to be searching for a kill elsewhere on the map. At least it's only the Bastet ult that gets used. SOT will use his ult to jump out as well. 3-level lead for Fino in the solo lane. That's where the Jade Dragons and their fans are putting all of their hopes right now. Somewhere on the right side of the map that this Bastet can come out of lane and really start to carry some weight. Because you look at that build aggro, you're in a bruiser standpoint is the word I'm looking for. You got Blackthorn, you're going to stack up this Transcendent, Shifter Shield as well for Fine OK.
I like it.
So you have some survivability, but you will be doing damage.
Yeah, you'll be doing a lot of damage. And the Shifters, I think, makes a lot of sense. You know, you want that power and that for your scaling whenever you jump in with Pounce. And then whenever you're jumping back, you're going to be on the lower end. So Shifter Shield will shift to defense mode, and then you're feeling good about your chances to survive on the way back. I really like the build for Fine OK, but at the end of the day, got to hit an ult.
Fine OK is behind Baronic here. Has his ultimate back up. Seems like just a moment is all the Jade Dragons need, and the Solar Scarabs have all the time in the world. Don't need an individual moment to win this game, but the Jade Dragons, they need one and then some. Hurrywind has gone full damage. So far in his build, are you surprised at all, Aggro? We have not seen a Breastplate of Valor prioritized for this Zeus.
Yeah, a little bit, but you know, I think that he just knows he needs more damage.
Inbound is taunted through, knocked up and deleted. Fine OK on a killing spree. Add another to the Bastet highlight reel in Game 4. And the Jade Dragons will pick the Scarab support once more, but there's no Fury on this side of the map to take. Red buff has already been dealt with. Purple buff gone as well. It is a pick. And seemingly nothing else for the Dragons.
I mean, that's huge, though. And it's inbound again in the wrong spot, just not the whole team around him. And yeah, they use our long ult on them. They commit something, but at the end of the day, it's not that much. And look at how much map pressure and how much wind it's pulled out of the sails of the Scarabs. That's what I was talking about, why I was so impressed by that Gold Fury pull from the Scarabs, because historically, when Bobby has gotten picked, which has happened a lot, they lose a lot of that momentum. But that time they did not. They went straight to the objective. But this time there's no objective to immediately go to force something. I like them grouping up around this Pyromancer. You know, they're clearly not just letting the Jade Dragons continue to come back in this game for free.
Baronic has hit a big power spike here. He has got Titan's Bane, and Polar Bear Mike feels the brunt of the damage. Stewart dropped down Sanctified Field. Pal used by Scream as well. That'll secure the Pyromancer. Those ultimates are big, though. Yeah. Is that enough to give the Jade Dragons an opening? And the Scarabs say no. They'll answer that question for us.
Because there's nothing for the Jade Dragons to really do. I mean, maybe they can group up and get tier 1 mid, which I would like at this point. I mean, it's against an AMC, so that matters quite a bit. But that's really Mike's first big mistake of this game. I think he's been playing really, really well in this one. But to use the beads is the real cardinal sin there, right? Because his ability to withstand a powwow has been critical in these team fights, and now he doesn't have that. And that's going to make a difference when it comes to this Primal Fury fight coming up in 45 seconds or so. So the beads usage is the one that really gets you in that moment. I don't think it's, maybe 37 seconds on Gold Fury spawn or Primal Fury, 107 on the bead, so they only need to stall for like 40 seconds. That's not too bad. But with the way the Scarabs have been playing around these objectives, they aren't waiting 40 seconds just to be polite. They're showing up and they're knocking down the door.
Does not feel great when the Oleron, who is supposed to be kept by the wayside, is top of the net worth charts by even 1,000 over the next player in the game, 2,000, maybe 1.34K or so over PandaCat, who will and has already left that lane a bit behind if you consider that laning phase over. So if you're fighting on the left side of the map, you're far from comfortable now if you're the Jade Dragons. Stewart considerably ahead in gold on everyone else here in this matchup. The Solar Scarab start up the Primal Fury. It's going to be a steal attempt from the Jade Dragons up into the powwow. Goes Scream. Beads used by Sanford Soccer. Fury gets reset as the rest of the Jade Dragons group up around the objective. The solo laners rotating in from mid. Shield goes down. Sanford Soccer throws out the taunt. Inbound has been left alone in the back. The Lightning Storm is huge from Hurrywind to buy space on the other side of this fight, and the Jade Dragons have showed up Are they going to start the Fury?
I think they are. Final K trying to zone out Solar Patrol, but Scream's still healthy.
Scream onto Hurrywin in the back.
Oh,
Sanctified
huge.
field. Oh, that's a big one. Yeah, baby. Stewart walks forward, grabs the killing spree. Baronic adds another. Final K, the saving grace for the Jade Dragons on a warpath here, will not get the next kill onto Stewart. SOT has 2 tethers out. That'll find a couple of stunts here. Panda Cat locked down in place and taken away by Stewart is the double kill. Jade Dragons, they show up. They pay for it with 3.
And they lose the Primal Fury on top of it. That sanctified field from Stewart was, mwah, it was a chef's kiss right there on the Primal Fury. Just could not ask for a better one. Right as soon as the Jade Dragons start to gain a little bit of confidence, and Hurry had a really good fight that time around. Really good chain lightning, lightning storm on top of priority targets, holds the detonate in perfect position, and that's it. And then the Solar Scarabs just reset. They let the Jade Dragons fumble a little bit. It's a great initiation onto Panda Cat from inbound. That creates space from Scream to come in and do the job. Just really, really impressive.
I mean,
and you
dream
want
about this.
Right on time. The second it's up, my man is slamming 4, and he's slamming the Dragons as well.
You dream about a sanctified field like that. You lock 3 in place. Your mid laner helps you out, grab the only person who's a threat to you on the other side of that fight. For a moment, looked like fine, okay. Might be able to turn that fight around, but the Solar Scarabs, despite some early trade back kills from the Jade Dragons, have not slowed down in this game 4. The game plan appeared to be draft-wise for the Jade Dragons to put some pressure on left, and we have seen anything but. It has been right-side madness for the Jade Dragons, and you're going to need some of that right-side madness around the fire.
And I have to say that Final K got kind of stopped on his rotation from Solar Patrol in mid, which is great work from Sot, because he knows that Final K is worth way more in the team fight right now.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why Final K isn't there way earlier. You know, if you know that they're going to be on Primal Fury, Final K is the hope for the Jade Dragons. That's what we've been saying all game. And as that guy, you have to be there first. You know, you have to beat your soul laner on that rotation. Who cares about that farm? They needed him there earlier. And it was good work from Sot to keep him out, but he was crossing the street at the wrong time anyways. He should have been there earlier.
Jade Dragons clinging to a small thread of hope here in their Smite World Championship dreams. A team, a roster that has found their way into the finals in, what, 3 straight years?
3 out of the last 4.
3 out of the last 4. This
and
team,
one
this
of them.
roster has found their
Mike
way
and Panda.
into the grand finals. They're on threat level midnight of going out of the Smite World Championships in the first game that they will play. The Solar Scarabs on the verge of moving on to the semifinals to face the Tartarus Titans with 1, maybe 2 more good team fights here for the Solar Scarabs if they go heavily enough in their favor. But there is some scaling. There is some hope for the Jade Dragons. Final K 403. Always look at this Bastet over in the solo lane. Hurrywin's got some priority items in his back pocket as well. Still a chance for the Jade Dragons.
Got to play around Hurry's ultimate. Has to get an equal value one, which is not going to be easy.
Could it be here? Final K jumps out. He is tethered in
Nice
place.
taunt.
Panda Cat is sent back into the wayside. Jump in
Oh,
from
boy.
SOT. Lord of the Afterlife is massive. Both of the carries alone in the backline, but neither of them die. Stewart being melted away. Panda Cat has stayed alive for so long, and that has opened the door for Final K to jump in. He'll grab the kill onto the Ola run, but Sam for Soccer alone all this time. 2 for 1 for the Scarabs.
That ultimate from Sot was huge. Got both backliners, Hurrowin and Panda Cat, just standing too close, and Final K trying to salvage some damage on the back end, but missed the root, and as a result, Scream is going to be A-OK. Bead still in his pocket at the exact same time, and the Scarabs once again outnumber the Jade Dragons in the team fight.
Gold at least somewhat even as far as that fight goes. XP about 1,000 in favor, though, of the Scarabs.
And Panda, you called it, man. He stayed alive for a long time. Just juked really, really well, put a ton of damage back onto Stu, and made that an actual 1-for-1 trade on that end of the team fight. But how bad does it feel if you're the Jade Dragons to know that I don't think anyone got pulled by the powwow, and that Sanctified Field was more or less a glorified sprint. All it did was speed up Stewart in order to get in that fight.
That's the best a fight is going to happen.
That's the worst fight for the
Dragons,
Scarabs team fight ultimates, and they still 2-for-1 you.
Yep.
And that is not a particularly good feeling. Now, that being said, there's still a lot of power left to build here for the Jade Dragons, and Hurry did not have Soul Reaver in that fight. I think if he did, the Dragons probably win that fight pretty easily, honestly. Now that he has it, maybe it can be a difference maker, but look at the Relic Graveyard for the Jade Dragons. They have 2 out of 10 available. On the right-hand
Not
side, it's
much
not
better.
that much better, but it's 3 sets of beads.
Beads, right.
And that's really important.
Beads, very important. Solar Scarabs do not want to waste time here. Fire Giant pulled.
Panda's
45
left.
minutes into the game. Panda Cat is not here for this fight. Hurry win, Fine OK, pull
Gotta be a
like
hero.
they are here. Fire Giant is secured by the Solar Scarabs. They make no mistake. Fine OK has been the one saving grace for the Jade Dragons, and he will be pulled to his first death of the game. Moronic gets the shutdown in the Solar Scarabs, 5 with FG. Jade Dragons missing their solo laner.
And it feels like the Jade Dragons are just a bit punch drunk right now. I mean, over and over and over again, the Solar Scarabs are the first ones to the objective and forcing the Jade Dragons to make a call. And on the Gold Fury, it's Fine OK not being there. And on the other side of the map, there it's Panda Cat, not there, on the left side of the map. And these are just mental mistakes and positional mistakes that you can't afford to make at this stage.
There's maybe a momentary advantage. 4 ultimates down for the Solar Scarabs, 4 ultimates up for the Jade Dragons, but the Scarabs playing slow enough. They're not going to give the Dragons that opportunity to find the engage. We're going to knock down this tower on right, knock down this tower in mid. We'll head on over to left, open up the left side, Phoenix as well. Why roll the dice when we know we're not at our strongest point? We've got a Gold Fury to look at. The red buff is going to be up in about 2 seconds if we buy our time. And the Solar Scarabs think about the immaturity as far as LAN experience goes with this roster and the poise that this Solar Scarabs team has shown. You get punched in the face in game 1 of this set. And now in potentially 3 straight games, you're going to deal a fatal blow back to the Jade Dragons.
You know, this set reminds me a lot of the Phase 3 playoff set that the Jade Dragons had against the Tartarus Titans, where the Dragons came out really hot in game 1. And you're thinking, okay, maybe the Dragons are like the Dragons again. Maybe they found it once more. And then 3 games in a row, they just get absolutely steamrolled. Feels a lot like that here in this game. Now, this third game, or game 4, I should say, has been a lot closer for sure. And the Dragons have had their moments, namely Fine OK. But, you know, these ultimates just haven't really been landing for the Bastet, even with the 5-1-3 scoreline. Fine's done great work this game, no doubt. But the 2 things that stand out in my mind are just these objectives on each side of the map where the Jade Dragons were not grouped. And maybe the call was to give that fire no matter what, or let Fine OK be the solo agent. You know, if that's the call, then that's one thing. But the Dragons just don't look up to matching the Solar Scarabs on their objective play, or their team fight, or their laning phases, or at all in these last 3 games.
The only Jade Dragons we've seen that remind us of the Jade Dragons. You're right, Aggro. Game number 1. 14,000 gold, 15,000 gold has been reached at some point in the last 4 games that we've seen.
Imagine you only watched Phase 1, where the Dragons were dominating and the Scarabs were horrible. And I told you the Scarabs were on the precipice of beating them in the
We have a lot of viewers today. I guarantee you that's a handful of people who are watching the Jade Dragons wondering what in the world is going on. What is this new look Solar Scarabs roster? They look so different from how they did at the beginning of the year. And what a difference a couple of phases make for this Solar Scarabs team. The Cinderella story, I'm not sure you can even call it that anymore. This Scarabs team has taken effectively everyone in the league to the brink for so long they could not close out these sets. And they are an inch away from moving on to the SMITE World Championship semifinals. You do not want to lose Scream to start it off, but it is all a bait. Is it all a ruse? Will Scream live? Nonetheless, down he crashes outside of the base of the Jade Dragons. Panda Cat has lived. Fine OK's gotten the kill on a Scream, but inbound jumps onto Panda Cat, and he'll grab that kill. The cleave damage massive on the rest of the Jade Dragons roster. The Solar Scarabs get 1. The Solar Scarabs add their 2nd. Hurryman desperately clinging to life, clinging to damage. And he will survive for a minute longer.
The only thing stopping the Solar Scarabs from eliminating the Jade Dragons right now are those 2 diamonds lit up on the left-hand side. Those ultimates have to go big.
This has got to be big, Hurrywin. You need the Lightning Storm, and it is huge. Stewart uses the Aegis, but watch out. Inbound is in the backline. PBM whittled down by Stewart. Fine OK jumps back into the fight, but will it cost him his life? Will it cost you the quarterfinal? Not yet.
Oh, my God. I can't believe that Stewart ends up living there. I think Hurry rushed the detonate in that moment because he was so scared of what Inbound was going to do, because he just watched his ADC get soloed by this Circuit. I thought that Panda was going to be fine for sure, but didn't love the relic usage, that Aegis a little bit too early. You got to Aegis that ambush damage if you have to have any hope, or juke it at the very least, but Inbound was on point, hit everything, forced Panda's relics, and ends up getting that solo kill all by himself in a 2v1 in the backline. And man, I mean, you called it. It's like a Cinderella story, and I'm not even sure it's dusk yet. It's not even close to midnight right now for the Scarabs.
We got plenty of dancing left to do for the Solar Scarabs in this weekend, it feels like. Though that amount of damage from Hurrywind gives you the slightest bit of light in your eyes if you're a Jade Dragons fan right now. You see what a good lightning storm onto the back line can look like. I can half HP, 3/4 HP someone if I'm Hurrywind and I'm in the right position. You're going to have to do it without your beads for the next minute and a half. Fire Giant will spring out, 8 seconds away from being enhanced. What is the call by the Jade Dragons? You only lost your mid lane Phoenix in that last push. Is that enough to get you confidence in walking forward into the Fire Giant pit?
No, sir.
The answer is no. The Solar Scarabs secure the enhanced Fire Giant and are signing their name on the bottom of their ticket to the semifinals.
Unbelievable. No beads up for the Jade Dragons, and that's why they can't be there to defend the EFG. And I'm not sure those beads are going to be back up again in Season 8 here, Dave. I mean, you look at 56 seconds on Hurrywind's beads in particular. That seems like an awfully long time from now.
We're not waiting that long. Right side push from the Solar Scarabs as inbound and SOT are in the mid lane. Jade Dragons are going to have to split time between the mid lane and the right. And inbound and SOT have thrown caution to the wind. They have jumped on the back line alone. What changes now? Why would anything change? As inbound has eyes for Hurrywind, and Hurrywind alone, that will buy space on the right side. Phoenix absolutely melted before any sort of fighting happens. Fine, okay, is there an opening here? Inbound says no.
And that Phoenix is already gone. I mean, in the blink of an eye, and there's waves pushing. This wave in mid is not pushed. The wave in right is not pushed. Beads are up for almost everyone on the Jade Dragons, 13 on Hurrywind, so they got that going for them, and that's the end of the list of things that are going well right now for the Dragons.
According to Inbound, this Jade Dragons team, the only team with pressure going into this matchup. You would not have guessed it, by the way, that things have gone. In we go on the left side, Phoenix. The Solar Scarabs got all 3 down. The Jade Dragons will group up as 5. One last chance under their Titan.
Deep breaths now for the Solar Scarabs. They don't have to push it right now. Look at these waves coming in mid and in right. This is where you got to have Scream, that veteran leadership. Hey, guys, let's wait. Let's just wait for our waves.
Season on the line for the Jade Dragons as the Solar Scarabs eyeing their fire minions walking down
man.
the mid lane.
Whoa.
Bear Mike, in he goes. You got to fight away from your Titan. Sanctified Field is down, but Stewart, too much sustain. Hurrywind jumped on by SOT. Polar Bear Mike, he will be the first casualty of this fight. No, he won't. It'll be Panic Hat instead. Lightning Storm down. Gets nearly nothing. SOT has got the double. The clock will not strike midnight. Not yet today. The glass slipper, it fits. It's on the foot of the Solar Scarabs. They will knock out the Jade Dragons, and these Scarabs go on to semis.
Unbelievable. I don't believe it. If you would have told me in April of this year that the Solar Scarabs would eliminate the Jade Dragons round 1 of the SMITE World Championship, I would have hit you. I would have been like, what is... Cease... Talk to a professional, because you need serious help. But it's unbelievable the transformation this team has made. I think that guy, first and foremost on your screen, Scream, I mean, he did so much for the way this team thought about the game and the way that they were going to execute. Stewart coming in late. I mean, you lose Zapman, who's supposed to be your veteran leader, and all of a sudden you got Stu coming in there and Stu Goat making it work. Unbelievable performance.
Is Stewart an asset or a hindrance to the Solar Scarabs team?
Jury's still out, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, TBD. Who knows? Look, you're continually handing Stewart lanes that are supposed to lose, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the one game where the Dragons were able to punish it, the Jade Dragons won. They were not able to punish what should be a slow-moving lane for Stewart.
And it's really, I mean, Scream played that game like a psycho. Like, think back to the level 1 Solar Troll cheese in the mid lane. Scream going, just 3-ing on every god he saw for the first 4 minutes of the game and getting kills every single time. Scarabs deserve it, man. They came in and they were the better team today, no doubt in my mind.
The X Factor continues, the question mark, the confusion around the Solar Scarabs team.
Bro, they're 6 games away from being world champions. They only have to win 6 more.
I'm as confused as he is, but don't be confused any longer, and I mean that with every ounce of respect, because this Scarabs team, they have grown, they have shown us they belong here, and they show us that their set against the Titans will be very competitive. Solar Scarabs knock out the Jade Dragons, move on to the SMITE World Championship semifinals. That's it for our first set of the weekend. We'll take a break. When we come back, the desk will break it down.
Good reverse review from Inbound. Keeps the back line out of this fight. Aurora's got the Scarabs blessing onto himself. Slice close spin, ducks back down. It's a big engage from SOT. Over on the Oracles, SOT going massive.
Scarabs are able to do it. They fight the odds, they slay the dragons one more time, and they find themselves now poised in the semifinals, going up against the Titans tomorrow. A lot of fun stuff to talk about in this set, in this game. But first, I want to talk to you about a charity event we were planning on doing in December. Now, a lot of you might have remembered, specifically around Phase 3 playoffs, we were talking a lot about Finchmas. During that week, we had to postpone it. Now, we do have a new date for the event. It will be January 29th. Of course, it is a charity event in memory of Finch, who we lost last year. We will be donating to the Southern Center for Human Rights, which is an organization that seeks to address the criminalization of poverty and other racial injustices in the legal system of the Deep South. And so with all of that, you'll be able to, get the standard skins for the $1,000 or more, your Poolseidons, your Archon Thanatoses, of course, Fernando Aries, Dr. Madlove Cupid, all of that. It's still in a blog post on the website if you want to go see all of the finer details, but that is the new date, January 29th. So a little later this month, hopefully you'll tune in for us, or with us, to celebrate what was a very, very, very phenomenal human being. But I can say this with confidence as well, Finch would be very happy right now because he was ecstatic. The last time me and him cast was a Scarabs win over the Dragons, and he absolutely loved it. And guess what happens right here in finals, in the quarterfinals, not the finals, that's still waiting to happen. In the quarterfinals, the Scarabs do it one more time, and Hazer, it looks really, really good for them as well.
Yeah, they were just outstanding. They got everything they wanted. They played it very clean. Final K, I think, put on a good performance on that Bastet. Other than that, it felt like there was nobody home for the Jade Dragons, and it was all Solar Scarabs all the way.
And there were a lot of moments, again, Taco, where the Scarabs were just able to find what felt like everything that could go wrong for the Dragons in a fight. The Scarabs found a way to make it happen for a lot of them.
Two big takeaways for me out of this set were that, for starters, Scarabs, they did not let Hurrywin breathe. The entire time, it was always inbound chasing him down, Scream chasing him down. He just was constantly being pressured by one or more parties out of the Scarabs. I think they did a great job at essentially neutralizing the Jade Dragon's presence from that mid lane role, and it also gave a little bit more advantages, I think, towards SOT, who without a doubt just had a career-defining performance here in the quarterfinals for Worlds. I mean, he definitely deserves to walk away from this set with his head held high, because that was quite a show out of him. And I mean, he ran it down on Osiris 3 times over, but sometimes, 3 is all you need. And SOT, he just looked like he was completely unstoppable, because Azer, you mentioned it, like, fine, okay, he got some kills, but as we all know in the world of Smite, kills don't necessarily equate to everything, and I think that the team fight differences were certainly being felt between that frontline performance out of the Osiris in comparison to that of the Bastet.
You really get to see it, I think, in moments like this fight that we're actually watching from Stuart's perspective. Around that Gold Fury, I mean, a really good team fight. And despite the fact that the Dragons are able to get a little bit of damage back off, they kill off Scream, things like that, they lose the Fury, then they end up losing the fight. A lot of big controlling, like 3-man sweeps like that happen for the Scarabs in a row, and it ends up resulting in a lot of fun. 1 death for Baronic all day so far. So, of course, I think we mentioned it to him before that game, and I said, I'm sorry, we just jinxed you. It's going to happen, but even still, 1 death throughout all of that means he's got a nuts KDA here at Worlds. Just a phenomenal performance all around, Hazer. I mean, there's so much to highlight that was good from the Scarabs, and at the same time, the good news is that they played a bunch of stuff we kind of already expected from them, so even now the Titans don't have as much to pull from.
Yeah, I think difficult to look at what they did today and say, here's exactly what you changed to take them down. The Titans will obviously be going over these tapes with a fine-tooth comb, I think, all evening, trying to figure out exactly what they need to do to take down the Scarabs. But they look like they have a lot more in the locker than I think even at the playoffs that we just saw they had.
And I'm excited to see this. I mean, again, the Scarabs, you roll back to Phase 1 and you tell anybody that they're going to be at Worlds to begin with, and a lot of people are going to be like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever you say, man. And now, the way they've been playing, it's that friendly reminder that, Stuart's been in the league for like 6 months, if even at this point. They've not had as much of a time together as some of these other teams, but they're playing just like they are. Taco, this is a team that seems to have a lot of hot hands behind them, but now they have to go up against the Titans next. That is going to be a definitely testing and strenuous fight for them to go up against. The Titans got here a while ago, so we haven't seen them play on this patch, but they were looking almost perfect when they did.
For sure, and not only that, but I think that the Tartarus Titans also a team that I think is really great at adapting the longer that a set goes. So these best of fives, while we've seen a few adjustments here from the Solar Scarabs, again, they didn't really have to change up the game plan all that heavily. It was largely just Scream and SOT getting to pretty much dictate the entire pacing of the map after game one. And, well, I think that one key takeaway, though, for sure, is the fact that I think Stuart really stepped it up. I know that he definitely had, that all that presence coming out of his solo and his jungler, but you could kind of see some of the shakiness in game one there with the Freya, and then all of a sudden you remember it's like, hey, I'm in the Pro League for a reason. I can definitely still compete with these guys. And I think it was cool to see him essentially kind of develop into a little bit of a more confident player throughout the set.
We got to see that, and ideally, we'll get to see more of that this weekend as they take on the Titans tomorrow. But up next, the second set of the day is going to be the Bolts and the Leviathans. Now, Hazer, this has been a very, let's say tumultuous, that feels like a good word for it, matchup over the last couple of years. In that, for the most part, the Bolts have almost always won this and hardly ever lost a game until more recently where the Leviathans have started to step up.
Yeah, regular season, Leviathans seem to have an okay time against this Bolts core, but last year even the Renegades took down Sanguine, as they were known back then, 3-0, and the Bolts definitely just seem to have the upper hand in this matchup a little bit. I don't know if it's a mental thing, I don't know if it's a playstyle thing, but the Leviathans, they need to sort it out, and they need to sort it out now if they want to keep going in the Smite World Championship.
Going to be just fun to watch, man. I'm just excited. I don't think there's a single set that this weekend could have produced that I wasn't going to be excited for. But this one has a lot of special energy to it just because of that history between these two teams and what they've been able to accomplish. But I will say this has been already a great day, especially if you're an enjoyer of the Scarabs. But realistically, if you just like watching Smite, I'm sure this has felt really solid for you. But Taco, I guess looking forward to this next set, what's standing out to you for Leviathans and Bolts?
The most fun part about tournament days, especially Worlds weekends at that, is it's almost anybody's game, honestly. It just depends on who happened to wake up on the right side of the bed today more than anything else. And I still feel very strongly as though, mechanically speaking, players, I mean, they're in the Pro League because their mechanics are already top tier. It's about the synergy from this point forward. And if that first set didn't establish that factor, that synergy kind of runs these games, I'm not really sure what will, but I'm expecting a lot of the same from both of these teams.
It's going to be fun to see. That, again, is going to be a little bit later. Up next, we have the halftime show. We're going to be talking to the Scarabs, getting a little bit of a view into their victory with a post-game interview, of course, breaking down the entirety of that set, and then looking even more forward to what the Leviathans and the Bolts have to offer us. All of that, and then, of course, the set itself right after this.